Representative Cole, want to come on up? Senate Judiciary is now in session. We're starting off with 1384, the Honorable Representative Cole. How's the campaign going, buddy?
It is going fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Good. Go ahead.
For the record, State Representative Brian Cole, Manchester, Hillsborough 26. So TPLF, third-party litigation financing, this version that you have before you basically just stops foreign entities from involving themselves in our legal system. So we don't want countries like China and Russia getting involved in a lawsuit so they become part of discovery. So they see sensitive materials and stuff like that. So this is basically just a guardrail bill. And over half the states in the country have enacted some form of TPLF now. So just bringing New Hampshire along with the rest of the group. And hopefully when I get to Congress, this is something I can do at the federal level. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Representative, good to see you as always. How you doing?
Well, good to see you as always. So I'm Representative Timothy Horgan for Stratford County District 10, which is the town of Durham. And so I'm opposed. I'm opposed to the bill for well, two reasons. One, there's a process issue, which was it's a fairly complicated. I mean, it's not long, but it's a complicated bill. We're not sure what all the implications of it was, and it was a last minute replace all amendment. So many of us on the committee, including myself, were not convinced that the language in there worked. And I'm not a big fan of the countries. There's a list. It's federal laws 15 CFR 791.4, and I'm certainly not a big fan of any of those countries that are listed there. I'm glad I don't live in any of them, but there probably are. But one of the things that sets us apart from those places is that we believe in the rule of law, and that everybody should have access to the courts to address their grievances. So there may be situations where entities in those countries may have a legitimate concern, and especially China in particular. As I said, I'm glad I don't live in China. It's a very impressive country, but they're also, they're by no means monolithic. And even though it's run by the Chinese Communist Party, they're very good at capitalism. So I'm not sure whether totally trying to shut them out of the court system is a good idea, especially since they could probably do the same thing to us. Also, like Venezuela's in there, it's federal Congress, the most recent version of that, they say Venezuela, parentheses, Maduro's regime. And although Maduro himself is in a federal prison, I'm not sure if technically the Maduro regime has been ousted from power. It just seems like they arrested President Maduro and then put his vice president in charge, but it's still the same people running the country. So I just think, I think this bill, the idea has some merit, but I don't think it's ready. It's ready to be passed in its current form. So
Thank you very much,
thanks.
Representative. Any questions? Thank you very much. I have no one else who wishes to speak. Lots of people signed in. Can anyone want to speak who meant to check off speaking? Seeing none, that'll close the hearing. Good to see you, Representative. Tell me all about 1419.
Am I on? Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I I will keep it fairly simple. I am happy to take questions, of course, in greater detail, but I would say, first of all, that HB 1419 is not looking to create a new court, restructure the judiciary, or do any of those things up front. We are looking to have a study commission. We are looking to understand how we should respond to a serious institutional opportunity, whether our existing business law, court structure, legal talent, and academic institutions can be aligned to make New Hampshire more competitive as a corporate and commercial law jurisdiction. And we obviously are well aware that Delaware has for a long time cornered this market, and that if somebody's looking to figure out where to incorporate, the answer was automatic. Delaware still has enormous advantages, and the market, however, is no longer static. We've seen Texas create and expand a specialized business court. We've seen Florida, Nevada, Indiana, and others position themselves to receive some of this business. And major companies have asked whether Delaware should still be their default. We have seen about 33 billion of companies leaving Delaware. That doesn't mean that New Hampshire should be chasing all that business. What it does mean is that we should study the question of what is right for New Hampshire and what business we may want to attract to New Hampshire. Right now, we're pushing business away. We have entrepreneurs in the state who ask themselves the question of where they should domicile, and the answer is not New Hampshire. And we have the opportunity here to leverage our strong rule of law reputation, to leverage our low tax and business-friendly brand, to take our existing business and commercial dispute docket in the Superior Court, to take UNH Franklin Pierce and all of our strengths in the New Hampshire advantage and improve upon that, and improve by understanding whether some of those assets can be organized into something more deliberate. And that's what this commission is about achieving. We're looking to make some recommendations here that are timely. And that's why we're looking to do it fairly expeditiously. And again, happy to take questions, and I would ask you to recommend this bill or to pass.
Very good. With the British accent, it sounds like it must be a good idea. Yes, Senator Reardon.
Thank you, and thank you, Representative, for taking my question. So the bill establishes a committee, a commission to study whether a court with specialized jurisdiction. So there is a court already in New Hampshire with specialized jurisdiction. Is this really more about attracting business to the state as opposed to how we handle business litigation in the state?
Yeah, thank you. I will answer that in a couple of parts. I think, first of all, of course, there is a marketing element to this. By establishing this commission, by having this conversation in the open, we are going to have the opportunity to attract more businesses to consider New Hampshire and to move to New Hampshire and to domicile in New Hampshire. Specifically, you're calling out Section 4A at the top of page 2 about establishing that Court of Chancery. The conclusion of the commission may be that the existing docket is appropriate and that we want to make some tweaks to that existing docket. It may be that there is a further set of recommendations made. I know that there are many within the judiciary who feel that that business docket is one of our strengths, and we have an opportunity to maybe double down on that a little bit. But I think beyond that, when you look at the rest of paragraph 4, there are other things that the commission would be reviewing, and other opportunities for the commission to make meaningful recommendations for legislation.
Follow-up? Thank you, Senator. Is this something that the Business and Economic Affairs does already?
I think it's something that BEA should be addressing. I don't think that they have the prerogative to come to us and make specific legislative recommendations. So in that sense, I would say no. But in the broader sense of, does BEA appropriately have an incumbency to figure out how to attract business and how to attract economic development to New Hampshire? Absolutely. And I think we've been having conversations with them. We've been having conversations with others. And I have to say there's been a very positive reaction to the idea of this commission and to some of the other ideas that have been mooted to BEA.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative McFarland, for answering my question. So I'm not entirely sure about the answer, that I understand the answer you just gave to Representative Reardon, because the BEA actually did a business recruitment and expansion strategy in many parts, and did the work that you're already talking about here. So why would we redo their work and instead of using the work that's been done since 2020? It's fresh. It's fairly fresh for these kind of studies, and build on that and use this data that they've already accumulated for us. that we
Okay.
paid for.
Thank you for your question. I would say two things. First of all, I don't think that in the current economic climate that 2020 is as fresh as it could be. The second thing I'll say is that my colleague, Representative Murphy, has been very close to these issues, and I know she's planning to speak, so I would suggest that you might want to ask her that question as well.
Okay. Wait for Murphy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Representative Mary Murphy. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and esteemed Senator colleagues on the Judiciary Committee. For the record, my name is Mary Murphy, and I am the state representative for Hillsborough District 27, the historic and beautiful towns of Deering and Francistown. I'm also a successful serial entrepreneur, and I have been the head of a multinational company's global division charged with building the software layer of the internet. It was the Telco and ISP Solutions division of IBM, based in Europe. So I have quite a bit of experience relocating, both internationally and domestically. So I kind of understand what companies go through when they're making these tough decisions and what is needed on the part of the state of New Hampshire to get them to move here. And so I have been very proactive in working with the Business and Economic Affairs Group to try and assist them through legislation and also through some advice on what the state could be doing to take advantage of what's happening around us in the country at large. So I'm here to testify in support of HB 1419, which I co-sponsored. And I think it's very important for the committee to understand that this bill is part of a much larger strategy that we are calling New Hampshire Advantage 2.0. And we are in the process of forming a bipartisan caucus to divide into teams to address some of the impediments to making this strategy successful in our state. But what we're trying to do is to transform the state and pivot away from our heavy dependence on tourism and property taxes to fund state general and education expenses. Our current situation makes us very vulnerable to future cyclical recessions, and we need a plan to change this. In addition, the average New Hampshire resident is crying out for property tax relief. I have over 10 families in Deering who might lose their homes due to tax liens because the high cost of education and resulting property taxes are unaffordable on their fixed incomes. And so this is why I say it's a nonpartisan issue. We're all concerned about this, and we're just trying to get creative around how to solve the problem. So the U.S. is in the midst of the largest corporate and wealthy individual mass migration since 2017. This has been caused by a combination of federal government global trade policy resets and tariffs, as well as increasing regulation, wealth, and business taxes in other states such as California, New York, Illinois, Washington, and most importantly, Massachusetts. States like Florida, Texas, and Tennessee are all benefiting from this migration. New Hampshire is also to a lesser degree. We need other sources of revenue besides property taxes and businesses with low income, seasonal jobs to rejuvenate our second oldest state and working age families. So this larger strategy involves growing our existing New Hampshire businesses, not by raising their tax rates, but rather by lowering their cost to do business in our states through deregulation and instituting business-friendly policies and legislation that help differentiate our state, such as the right to try and trust laws that we already have on the books. We need to expand trade relations with countries beyond Canada and Ireland to provide access to new markets for New Hampshire goods and services. And we need to recruit new businesses from specifically targeted, high-margin, low-resource demand businesses, such as life sciences, technology, financial services, advanced manufacturing, and others to relocate to our state from other states and countries. So we don't want to be all things to all people the way that Florida and Texas have grown indiscriminately, because they're having resource issues and other issues. New Hampshire wants to be Lexus. We don't want to be Ford. And we have come up with a game plan on how to actually make that happen. The Chancery Court, establishing a Chancery Court in New Hampshire is an important factor in attracting companies to incorporate in our state and would put us on the national radar as a desirable state in which to do business. Currently, we are not on the short list when business media pundits discuss the corporate mass migration now occurring throughout the country. This must change. Establishing a Chancery Court would potentially result in billions of dollars of recurring revenue to the state, resulting from fees without having to overdevelop our state or relocate all the businesses here. In conclusion, I urge the committee to vote ought to pass on HB 1419. This legislation will garner national attention and diversify our economy by establishing a significant new stream of revenue, one that reduces our state's reliance on tourism and property taxes. Thank you. And so I have the written testimony I'll give to the clerk, and also I have an editorial that explains the strategy in more depth that I will also share with the clerk. Thank you.
Very much. Questions? No, we are good to go.
Could I just respond, though, to the question previously about the BEA? Because of all of the representatives, I've been working the most closely with them. And, we have a very cooperative relationship. So the BEA's charter, as you've mentioned, is to help attract businesses to the state. But historically, most of the funding that the House has granted them has been directed at tourism and outdoor recreation businesses. And so the new commissioner and a team of legislators that I'm leading has discussed the situation with the new commissioner, and she is open to the idea that we need to shift headcount and money over to the recruitment side of the business. Up to this point, they've only allocated $50,000 to that out of a $14.6 million budget to that task. So they're understaffed and under-resourced for that remit. So that's one thing you need to know. The other thing you need to know is that we have one judge in the state, to my knowledge, that deals with resolving business conflicts. What we're talking about is a much larger court that would be able to handle the volume of incorporations and litigation that we expect to occur if we were to succeed in our strategy to establish a Chancery Court in our state. So not only would this benefit the state in terms of recurring filing fees, but we would, our legal industry, our corporate legal industry in the state would also have greater revenue and more profit that we're already taxing. So we would automatically get that additional, profit tax revenue. So I hope that helps answer the questions that you were asking previously of my colleague. All right, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Representative Dina Popovici. I never say it right. How you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing great. Thank you,
Good.
members of the committee. As a co-sponsor to HB 1419, I just wanted to be very brief and say the following. As you can tell from the questions and the discussions in this committee, this is an immensely complicated matter. And it is very hard to introduce legislation and get it right without the kind of concerted effort that creating this commission would produce. So while you will very rarely ever see me advocate for the creation of a committee or a commission, because of the complexity of this matter, this is a rare time when I am asking for this, because this is just too complicated for one legislator to tackle on their own, and we need a team effort. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to testify on 1419? Seeing no one, that'll end the hearing. Representative Manos. Senate Judiciary is now hearing House Bill 1637. Your Honorable Ms. Manos is introducing the bill. Good morning, afternoon, I'm sorry. It's very.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to members of the committee. My name is Zoe Manos, and I represent Stratham. So I am a constituent of Senator Altshuler's, and she's my constituent. I'm very pleased to introduce to you House Bill 1637. This bill comes out of the horrific murder of Marisol Fuentes by her violent husband, Michael Gleason, in Berlin last July. Ms. Fuentes took every step possible to protect herself from her violent husband. She obtained a permanent order of protection, she filed for divorce, and she went back to the circuit court to seeking enforcement of her protective order in a contempt. And still, Ms. Fuentes was murdered by her violent husband at her workplace. After Ms. Fuentes' murder, the judicial branch and the AG's office each undertook thorough reviews to determine what the failures had been, what additional protections were needed to prevent tragic deaths or injuries to victims of domestic violence. This bill, HB 1637, requires that when a motion to modify or revoke bail is filed by either the state or the defense in domestic violence, stalking, or harassment cases, the hearing on the motion shall be scheduled within 72 hours, excluding weekends, state, and federal holidays. The bill does not require that the hearing be held within 72 hours, but only that the scheduling of the hearing occur. This would avoid an inordinate amount of time to pass between when a motion to modify or revoke bail is filed and when a hearing date is set. In cases of domestic violence, stalking, and harassment, escalation can happen very, very quickly, and it's critical that the prosecution and defense can get a hearing date scheduled expeditiously. In addition, in this case, a 17-year-old, a separate victim, alleged that the defendant has sexually assaulted her after the criminal bail conditions had been set. The issue then would most likely have been, at least in part, the defendant's dangerousness to the public. A hearing on a motion to modify or revoke bail must be scheduled within a short period of time. Otherwise, the defendant will potentially continue to hurt other people while on bail, as happened in this case when Ms. Fuentes was murdered by her abusive husband. Last Friday, Lauren Warner, who's the Deputy General Counsel for the New Hampshire Judicial Branch, reached out to me. She pointed out that HB 1637, as drafted, applies only to motions to appeal the terms of bail in domestic violence and stalking cases in the Superior Court. She raised the question with me whether I had intended for HB 1637 to also apply to bail in the Circuit Court, where, of course, most of the domestic violence, stalking, and harassment cases are filed. My intention was to require that the clerk's office schedule a hearing, but not necessarily hold it within 72 hours when existing bail conditions are alleged to have been violated, when new or additional information comes forward, and the prosecutor moves to impose additional bail conditions or revoke bail, and on the appeal of bail by either the prosecution or the defense in the Superior Court from the Circuit Court. So an amendment for your consideration has been prepared by Senator Altshuler to accomplish these goals. And I believe you have a copy of that amendment in front of you, and if not, I have extra copies of it.
We have, thank you.
And I'm happy to take any questions. I also have a statement from one of my constituents in Stratham who works in the area of domestic violence. And if I may, it's a short letter. I would like to read it into the record, if I may.
How short, like half paragraph there?
It's,
Pages, no. We'll read it.
okay. I will
Thank you.
provide copies to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm happy to take any questions.
Senator Oshler.
Thank you, Representative Manos, for bringing this legislation forward, particularly in light of the horrific murder of Marisol Fuentes. We recognize that there were gaps in the law, and thank you for taking the leadership in closing those gaps. I want to state for the record that while my name is on this amendment, Representative Manos really did take the lead on this, and the issues that are in the amendment were requested by Lauren Warner and of,
The administrative branch of the
Right.
trial court.
so this was a catch that was made post House vote, and I'm thrilled that we were able to catch that and make the changes requested so that the hearings are addressed in both circuit and superior courts. Thank you.
If I may.
Yes.
You may.
If I may, Attorney Warner reached out to me last Friday. She was very clear with me, and I want to make sure it's on the record, that she and her team, specifically Judge Christo is part of that team, had been reviewing my legislation in preparation for the hearing today. And they were, Attorney Warner reached out to me to ask me what my intention was. The administrative branch takes no formal position on the bill. I want to be clear on that, but they are generally supportive, which was why they reached out to me for clarification.
Mr. Chair.
Very good. Yep, follow.
Thank you. Representative Manos, it's my understanding that you work as an attorney representing domestic violence victims.
I do.
Is that correct? And so survivors of domestic violence have expressed to you, as I understand in previous conversations, that this is a gap that would have helped them.
In my practice, I have not run into this specifically, but it certainly is raised in the AG's report on Ms. Fuentes' situation. And I'm going from my memory, but I believe it was also raised in the AG's report.
Thank you.
We're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David Muse, Representative David Muse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. When there are gaps and ambiguities in our law, it becomes very difficult to apply the law consistently and fairly. In the case of domestic violence laws, gaps and ambiguities also increase the risk that the system will fail.
Representative?
Yes, I'm
You
sorry.
haven't introduced yourself yet.
What?
You haven't introduced yourself yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Representative David Muse. I am the Deputy Ranking Member of the House Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, and I represent Portsmouth, Newcastle, and Newington. I'll start again. When there are gaps and ambiguities in the law, it becomes difficult to apply the law fairly and consistently. In the case of domestic violence laws, gaps and ambiguities also increase the risk that the system will fail the victim. What this bill does is to impose something on the courts that those of us in the legislature deal with all the time, a deadline. In this case, a deadline of 72 hours in cases of domestic violence, stalking, and harassment to set a hearing date on a motion to revoke or amend a defendant's condition of release. The bottom line is that when someone's safety is at risk, bail issues shouldn't be allowed to sit around for weeks unresolved. Something I'd like to point out to the committee is that the bill before you today is one of a flurry of bills that were filed in response to the Marisol Fuentes murder last summer in Berlin. But after all of the media coverage, after all the press releases, after investigations by the Attorney General's office and a judicial commission, all in response to the murder of Marisol Fuentes, and investigations that, by the way, pointed out systemic failures. We're at a position in this point in the legislative calendar where we have only 2 bills that have survived this process. This is one of those 2 bills. I have a complete list of all the others that I'll share with the committee. The bottom line is that while it's a good thing that these 2 bills have passed and are now in the hands of the Senate, and both address shortcomings in our current law, I think one of the things we have to ask ourselves as legislators is that all there is? Is that all there's going to be after all of the controversy, after all of the news stories, and I hate to say it, I think after all of the posturing that was done on this issue over time, we're in a position now where we have an Attorney General's report that says we have systemic problems with our current domestic violence law. And we have 2 bills that touch on those shortcomings in small ways, but there are many, many other things that are unaddressed. Again, I would be the first to tell you that not all of the legislation that came in front of my committee on this issue was perfect, and some of the legislation, it was far from it. But the bottom line is, if I had to grade the performance of this legislature when it comes to closing the systemic gaps that have been identified over the last year in the system, I'd have to give us an F. And if we don't pass this bill, I'm not sure if we can give a grade lower than an F. But I think the bottom line is we can't do everything, but we can do something. And the something we can do is in your hands right now, and that's passing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Muse. Questions? No, you're good. Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to testify on 1637? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing. Okay, we'll start 1665. Representative Popick, if you can introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Daniel Popovich Miller. I represent Windham, District 17 of Rockingham County. I'm here to introduce HB 1665, which, as every other bill I've introduced this year, is a bipartisan bill. And it is a very, very straightforward thing. Actually, it may be the shortest bill you get the pleasure to review this year. All it does, it says that all parties to an administrative hearing have equal opportunity to subpoena witnesses or documents, and authority is identical to RSA 516.2 through 516.5. The intent of the bill is to make sure that proceedings are fair by allowing both sides or all sides to a proceeding equal ability to introduce evidence and bring witnesses forth. And really, it's as simple as that. And I do have the pleasure of seeing my co-sponsor, Representative Lin, here to testify. So I'm sure that he'll be able to get into the more technical parts of the bill, but the intent of the bill is very straightforward.
Thank you very much, Representative. We all set? Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. Representative Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Bob Lynn. I'm also from Wyndham, and I appear here in support of the bill. I think this bill just really, as the Representative Papavici-Muller mentioned, it just reflects a sort of common sense understanding that if parties are going to be in front of an administrative hearing process, both sides ought to have the ability to secure evidence or documents, witnesses from people who might not otherwise be willing to voluntarily provide that information. That's what the subpoena allows. And I think it just makes common sense for both sides to be able to invoke the subpoena process.
That was brief for you. Come on. That was very good. Questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Lynn, for taking my question. So I know it references back to court, the clerk of the court, who that in section 516, 2 and 5. Just help me understand, in the administrative hearing process, where there's not a lot of back and forth necessarily before the hearing, who is the decider of overreach on bringing, witnesses that may not really have anything? It's less of a formal forum, or an overreach on documents that aren't necessary. Where's the control on that?
No, an excellent question. I think one of the things that I think is very important to understand, just as a kind of fundamental concept, is a subpoena, as probably the lawyers know, but maybe so those who are not lawyers may not know. A subpoena is not a search warrant. It doesn't authorize whoever has the subpoena to actually seize anyone or seize any records. The party who receives the subpoena always has an opportunity to object and to be heard. And to your question, I think in the administrative context, it would be the hearings officer that would make the initial decision, saying, for example, there might be a motion to quash if it was overbroad, and the hearings officer would make the decision on that matter, presumably subject to whatever appeal process would be available in the administrative process. And I think if the hearings officers don't have the power of contempt, so if for example, if a hearings officer issued an order saying, telling someone to comply with a subpoena, and the person still didn't comply, I think then the proponent of getting the evidence would have to go to Superior Court, filing a motion for contempt, and the Superior Court could then, theoretically, if worse came to worse, could actually order the person to be, incarcerated until they comply. But hopefully you never get there. But that it would be only the Superior Court that would have that kind of power.
May I follow up?
You may.
Thank you. So I'm thinking administrative hearing at motor vehicle, and somebody who is charged with some kind of violation or offense asks for all of the motor vehicle records of anybody who's lost their license over a 5-year period. That's the hearings officer?
The hearings officer would make that decision about, and I assume that would be a relatively easy decision to say, no, it's obviously overbroad and has really no relevancy. So yes, it would be the hearings officer who would make those decisions.
One last one, thank you. So does it make sense for us to be referencing back to the court statutes there, or maybe writing it within this 541A?
I think that the court statutes are, yes, they talk about the court, but I think the reference is just because of the general process of how it would go. But you may, I don't have those statutes right in front of me, and you may be right. Maybe it would make more sense to simply say, in the administrative process, it's the hearings officer that makes those decisions in the first instance. And if the statutory reference could lead to some confusion, then I would say that probably would be a good idea.
Cool, thank you.
Senator, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Lynn, for taking my question. Always interesting chatting with you.
Same here.
Always we ask, what happened? Like, what was the inspiration? What was the problem that this is solving? Who had a problem and what was it? Or how many times has this been an issue that we have to now insert more into the law?
Sure. So, you know what, I think that's really an excellent question, because if you had asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have said, well, I haven't really heard of like any huge issues in this regard. But where the issue kind of got joined, as you may recall, that for a couple of years, and I think we finally got it passed last year, but there was legislation to give the Commissioner of Education, to give the Department of Education the subpoena authority. And there was a lot of opposition to that. Candidly, I think that quite a bit of that had to do with some political opposition to who the Commissioner of Education was at the time, and there was some political opposition. Eventually, it got passed, but my point is that as we went through that process and heard the opposition, there was a lot of testimony saying, well, various other agencies have really different procedures. Some statutes, some regulatory statutes apparently don't say anything about parties to an administrative hearing having the ability to issue subpoenas. And so, my thought was, the ability to issue subpoenas for both sides of any dispute shouldn't be limited to just the Department of Education. It should apply across the board to any, if you are facing either as a prosecutor or a defense in some administrative hearing, both sides ought to have the ability to compel people to appear as witnesses or to provide documents if they, where they would otherwise not choose to do that. Because otherwise, if you have to rely on people being cooperative, there just may be people who will not be cooperative, and neither side ought to be stuck in that situation.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're all set, Representative.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you have more?
No.
Okay. Representative Donald, is it McFarland? From Grafton 18? You didn't check off speaking or not, so we'll move on. Aubrey Friedman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, committee members, Aubrey Friedman, I live in Bridgewater. I speak in support of this bill. Why should only administrative government agencies have the right to issue a subpoena, but not the other parties? This seems to me unfair. The government agencies already have a lot of resources, and the other side should be able to get at the truth of things, and sometimes you have to do a subpoena. So this would level the playing field, I think. And lastly, when you get a subpoena, it's kind of intimidating whether you get it from a government agency or, if the bill passed, a private party. And so it's possible it could be unreasonable or frivolous, in which case this bill, they have the right to file a motion to quash the subpoena. That's the law now, and this bill isn't changing that, and you'd have to keep that. So that'd be a good thing. So in general, I say it supports a level playing field in search of the truth, and that's why I support the bill, basically.
Thank you very much. We do have a question. Senator Reed.
Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Freeman. How are you? I will ask the same question that I asked Justice Lynn. Is it So this will live in the Administrative Procedures Act. That's where you'll find this provision that you're entitled to a subpoena. But the rest of the bill says that the method to do it, it sends you back to the court, to a different statute that is under the court system. Would you, if you were using this section of the law to do a subpoena, would it be more helpful for you to have that process built into the same section of the law at the Administrative Procedures Act?
Sounds reasonable, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'm really not an expert of it. It seems like it should be in the same section.
Thank you. And if I could just follow up. So I think the administrative acts that we're talking about, administrative hearings here, it's more likely that a person who isn't a lawyer is going to maybe be trying to navigate this by themselves. So they may not know to look in the section of the law that's about the courts and the process. So, okay.
Right, I agree.
We agree. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Friedman.
Thank you.
Sarah Burke Cohen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Burke Cohen. I represent the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I'm not here to actually take a position on the bill. However, I was hoping the committee may consider amending the bill. Our concern is that the language is all parties to an administrative hearing held pursuant to law, which could assume any law and not relate to 541, which is administrative hearings before state agencies, that if you leave it the way it is, there could be some confusion relative to whether this applies to other administrative hearings under other statutory, under other statutes, such as administrative hearings held in municipalities that are not necessarily investigative in nature, but are somewhat, quasi-judicial, like local municipal boards or the like. So what we would ask is, we're not taking a position on whether subpoena power should be granted for both parties in administrative hearings that fall under the 541A, the Administrative Procedures Act. We're just looking for the language to be tightened up so that this applies to 541A, which is the chapter it's under. I'm happy to take questions.
Good. We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else wish to testify on 1665? Seeing none, I'll end the hearing. Do you guys want to take a minute, or are you good to go? It'll take 2 minutes. We're going to take a 2 to 3 minute break. Senate Judiciary is back in session. We're going to go on to House Bill 1416. The Honorable Samuel Barrington is the prime sponsor, and you're going to introduce it. So just, Reverend, some of these bills get emotional, and we're going to try to just keep our cool today on all sides. Welcome again, Representative, and go ahead.
Good afternoon, Senators. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back. If you support the principles of free speech, religious freedom, free expression, then you should support this bill. HB 1416 ensures that pregnancy resource centers can never be compelled by the government to provide, refer, or promote abortions here in New Hampshire. This bill does not regulate abortion. It does not prevent women from accessing abortion facilities. What this bill does do is protect a constitutional principle, that the government should never be weaponized to pursue a political agenda. Across New Hampshire, we have more than a dozen, I think closer to 20 different pregnancy resource centers scattered across our state. And they provide free resources to mothers and families facing difficult pregnancies. Free diapers, clothing, food, sometimes rental support, parenting classes, counseling services, sometimes ultrasounds, all free of charge to women and families in these difficult situations. And keep in mind, they do not accept a single dollar of taxpayer funds. So why do we need the bill? Well, across the country, we have seen a coordinated attack by state governments to go after them and put them out of business. Just look south across our southern border, Massachusetts. Governor Maura Healey launched a $1 million taxpayer-funded campaign to try to put pregnancy resource centers out of business. They're spreading advertisement and misinformation about pregnancy resource centers, saying that they lie to women and that they provide inaccurate information, but that's just not true. The state of Colorado passed a law which takes away licenses from any doctor that dares to prescribe progesterone, which is a common practice for redoing the effects, reversing the effects of mifepristone, which is the first pill in the chemical abortion process. The state of Illinois passed a so-called deceptive practice statute, and that allows their attorney general to sue up to $50,000 if a pregnancy resource center refuses to refer for an abortion. Both of those laws were held up in federal court. And there's also other states, Vermont, Massachusetts, as I mentioned, and we've seen this all across the country. You might ask, why New Hampshire, though? We haven't seen anything in New Hampshire. We haven't seen any bill filed by a legislator. Well, our Congresswoman, Maggie Goodlander, it's still on her website, and she campaigned on this last year, 2 years ago, but she wants to put pregnancy resource centers out of business. Cindy Warmington wants to do the same exact thing. And so here in New Hampshire, we have about 20 of them, and they provide so many resources to these mothers facing difficult situations. We need to stand with them. We're not asking for any special carve-out or for special protections or even taxpayer funding. We're just wanting to let these pregnancy resource centers continue operating, doing the good work that they're doing. And at the end of the day, they really have one goal, maybe two, to save lives and to make sure that when those lives are born, when those babies are newborn babies, that they have the best access to a quality life. And so with that, I would welcome any questions.
I'm going to ask you just a couple, really few. Just tell me a little bit about, if you know, the medical staff that are at these facilities, the counseling staff that might be there.
So it depends on the pregnancy resource center, but I know we have some people here that can talk about it some more extensively. But I will say that there's sort of two categories. You get one that deals with some medical practices and then one that doesn't. So if it's a medical pregnancy resource center, as I defined in the bill, they might provide ultrasounds and they work under the direction of an MD usually. They often have registered nurses on staff. I've toured probably 4 or 5 at this point, and I've seen 4 tours, I think, that I would describe as medical, and then 1 in Dover that was more focused on parenting classes and counseling services. And then, they have other employees. There's about 2,800 of these pregnancy resource centers all across the country, 68,000 employees. 70% of those employees are volunteers. So these people are very passionate about the cause that they serve, and they're not in it for the money or for any other motive.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Senator Auschler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Farrington, for taking my question. So in the bill, you have differentiated between Pregnancy Resource Center and Medical Pregnancy Resource Center. However, it's not in the definitions. You have only defined abortion, chemical abortion, contraception, and pregnancy resource center. So it seems to be missing a definition. So what would be the definition of medical pregnancy resource center as referenced on line 23, part 8, Roman numeral 8?
So you can actually find the definition of pregnancy resource centers at the top of page 2 on line 1. I'll read it. Pregnancy resource center means a private nonprofit facility that provides pregnancy counseling, material support, or medical care to pregnant women, but does not perform abortions or make referrals to abortion providers.
Follow up?
Yes, please. So, but you haven't differentiated medical pregnancy resource center. You've just mentioned medical care under the definition of pregnancy resource center.
Every medical pregnancy resource center is a pregnancy resource center, but not every pregnancy resource center is a medical pregnancy resource center, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you for yeah, so you would need 2 definitions if that is the case.
I don't think we would, because
That's not a question. So my question is, we decided earlier this spring not to protect reproductive health care centers with a shield law. Why would we now turn around and offer a carve out for pregnancy resource centers who are protected under the First Amendment when we're not protecting actual medical providers in healthcare centers?
you're referencing the Senate bill.
I am.
So the House didn't deal with that. We didn't deal with that. But in terms of this bill right here, it's not asking for any special carve out. The shield law that I have seen in other states protects out of state doctors from criminal prosecution. I don't know if that's the exact detail of that bill, but this bill specifically deals with New Hampshire only, New Hampshire law only. And I think I'd be willing to guess that there's a pretty distinct difference there.
Follow?
Yes, please. Thank you. So how are these resource centers not currently protected under the First Amendment? No one has proposed any legislation to regulate them, to change them, to make them say anything, which we cannot do. We've been down that road before. So we don't do that here in New Hampshire, and no one's even trying or has tried in the past. You have a hypothetical campaign-related possibility from a member of the federal delegation and someone who holds no office right now.
I'll tell you, Cindy Warmington's running for governor. She's a prominent Democrat, seems to be the front runner, and she wants to put these places out of business. I'll take her money for what that's worth.
So if I might finish my question, thank you. Since we have not had any legislation, at least in the past 10 years, to the best of my knowledge, because that's how long I've been here, so I'll speak to that. And we haven't heard anything in this legislature about going forward with this. And we don't regulate these centers. They enjoy absolute unregulation. They get to do what they do under the First Amendment. Where's the threat? I understand you said Massachusetts, but I think we have heard ad nauseum how we don't want to mess up New Hampshire. So I don't think there's a threat coming from Massachusetts. We're a red state. Where do you think the threat's coming from?
Historical precedent, and I will say that this is a proactive bill. So it ensures that this would never happen in New Hampshire. We can look at Massachusetts, Colorado, Illinois, Vermont. It seems like New England surrounding us is implementing these policies as well. And I don't want these policies ever happening in New Hampshire.
Thank you. Another line of questioning? Something else?
All set.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much, Sam.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bob Dunn. Robert, I did sort of quote you a week ago, so I hope it's something else. But, so thank you for your wisdom and your learned
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
thoughts.
I hope it was in a positive light and not otherwise. Thank you, Senator Gannon, members of the committee. It's good to be back in Senate Judiciary. I'm Bob Dunn, the Director of Public Policy for the Roman Catholic Diocese of Manchester, and I'm here today on behalf of Bishop Peter Labashi, not surprisingly, to register our support for this bill. I know there's a bunch of people that want to speak and will speak to the details of this, so I'll try to keep it brief just to make 2 quick points. First, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops have called Catholics in the United States to what they call radical solidarity with moms and children in need. And the sorts of efforts that the pregnancy resource centers carry out, and you'll be hearing, I think, more specifics on that in the course of this hearing, are the sorts of things that epitomize that idea of radical solidarity. And I think it is it's the sort of work that we would be applauding. I think if we took the word abortion out of this, and I know that's impossible, but if we took that out, this sort of work would be the sort of thing that everybody would stand up and say, this is what we want citizens to do. We want to help people that are in need, especially women and children that are in very difficult circumstances. And the last thing that I will say is this, and I've said this before on a number of occasions in this committee in particular. As a body politic, we need to come to grips with how abortion resonates across the entire spectrum of public policy. If we want society to value the dignity of the young human being at the border, the young human being who is homeless, the young human being who needs health care, then we need to value the human dignity of the young human being in the womb as well. Once we start asking society to treat certain ones of us as disposable, we can't be surprised when society begins to treat certain ones of us as disposable. So we ask you to recommend ought to pass on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? All set. Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Tim, I'm going to call on you because you're always first and center. Morgan, if you're still here. Representative Horgan, have at it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm Resident Timothy Horgan, Stratford County District 10, the town of Durham, and I have a tough act to follow in Bob Dunn, especially since I myself was brought up by Catholic, and I certainly agree with solidarity with those who are at the border and those who are homeless, both of whom are probably not being supported as much as they should be. So I'm opposed to this bill. These pregnancy resource centers have existed in New Hampshire without any regulation, and actually I've often thought they should be regulated, but I've struggled with it for a lot of reasons. One of it is, first of all, there'd be a lot of resistance to it. I'm not necessarily the best spokesperson for the issue, being an older man. I hate to admit it, but I'm going to be 70 in October, and even if I was a woman, I would be long past childbearing age, so I probably want somebody else to be the face of the bill. We heard about the laws in Vermont and Massachusetts. We're probably going to hear more about the law against Vermont because there's a citizen who came to speak before House Judiciary who did have difficulty running a pregnancy center, but that was in Vermont. She lived in Keene and commuted across the Connecticut River. So bear in mind, we're definitely not Vermont. We're definitely not Massachusetts. So those laws, it's not really an issue in terms of deciding what laws we should have here. And actually, even if you like the basic idea behind the bill, there's no provision for to try to prevent federal interference with these centers. And I think they do a variety of things that could bring the conflict of the federal government, especially I know some of them serve immigrant communities, and I don't think we've had any raids on the pregnancy resource centers, but that's definitely something that I'm sure they're worried about, something that their clients have had to deal with in their lives. So, and actually so one of the reasons why I think probably it was a mistake for the proponents of this bill to bring it in is because if this passes, when I'll have RSA, it'll probably be 332-0, and that's something I could easily, if myself or some other legislators decided to put in some common sense regulations on these centers, that's probably exactly, we now have an RSA right there, a chapter right there in the RSAs that we could amend to bring in some of the restrictions. Because certainly if these organizations are providing medical or counseling services, which it says right there on page 2, apparently they are providing medical care. That's something that I think is within the purview of the state government. That's something that the state and the municipalities probably should be looking into. So I would, and I might also point out someone I do not see in the room, and I don't see her on the sheet, is Cindy Warmington. The previous member talked about what her position on this is. She's apparently, unless she's sitting out the hallway, surprise me, she's not planning to come in and testify in this. So whatever she thinks about it, I'm certainly not qualified to say what she thinks about it or anybody else is. So I would just say, these organizations are a lot of, probably like do a lot of good. Think about it. I think if they're providing medical care or counseling services or taking taxpayer money, which they may in fact be in spite of their insistence that they're not, I think that's something that might at some time in the future be regulated. In any case, in this case, putting this bill just to prevent future regulation doesn't make any sense. It's more sensible just to leave the law the way it is and not have this RSA 332-0 on the books at all.
Thank you, Representative.
Thanks.
Few questions? Seeing none, we're all
All right,
set.
thank you.
Very much.
Thanks.
Representative Popovich.
Slightly support, but I wasn't.
Okay. You've never turned down speaking before. Jeez, okay. David Love?
I don't see one here.
Thank you, Chairman Gannon and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Representative David Love. I represent Rockingham 13, which is Derry, and I've got one of these pregnancy centers in my district. To me, from what I can see, they do nothing but good. They do it for no taxpayer cost. They do it for the money they do spend is from donors, and we should keep our nose out of it. To paraphrase Ronald Reagan, one of the most dangerous statements ever made is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Okay, we don't need to be sticking our nose in this. Regarding some of the questions, there are some medical centers here, medical pregnancy centers, and it's my understanding that they are licensed medical providers that are working there. The one in Derry, it's all volunteers. They do no medical stuff. They give clothes, they give food, furniture, baby cribs and things like that, and help the people along. Quite often it's a young girl, 17, 18-year-old girl that's scared. And, sometimes the parents are disgusted, "Oh no, my daughter's pregnant." And they help those families get from, that real fear to get rid of the stigma and things like that, and come out with hope and joy at the end. The people there, the special people, they do it for nothing, and there were comments about other states, and I don't have to tell you guys that a lot of times we have copycat legislation, You know, somebody will say, hey, look at that, look what they did in New York. That's a good idea. Let's put a bill in like that. So this legislation, without this bill, this legislation from other states will probably be here. I don't put a timetable on it, but, you know, they will be. Somebody will bring some restrictions to this. You know, you have to tell them that abortion's available. Something like that, you know, that's not, that everybody knows that there's abortion available. A 10-year-old knows that, unfortunately. But, you know, they don't need to be told. They're there for other reasons, and they shouldn't be pushed one way or another. You know, once again, it's a private business, and the state shouldn't be sticking their nose in it any more than we should be telling McDonald's to, when somebody orders a Big Mac, to go down the street and maybe they wanted to get a Whopper at Burger King. You know, same thing. You know, we shouldn't be telling businesses that, you know, they have to offer somebody else's services. You know, and, you know, I think we should just leave it alone. Like Ronald Reagan said, you know, the government has no business sticking their nose in here and messing it all up. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. The only thing I'd differ with you on might be, maybe someone should tell me to walk away from that Whopper, but that's my personal problem. Very good. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Send her out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Love. And I'm struck by your testimony. We don't need to be sticking our noses in this. New Hampshire doesn't right now. We don't regulate, we don't require. We actually have these businesses who operate for the most part as 501c3s do what they do. Like, no one's getting in the way of them doing what they do. And so why do we want to start meddling with a system that's already working?
Yet, is the key word there. You know, it's like I said, the copycat legislation that comes to the legislature, in both houses here. You know, it's I hear it all the time. Well, you know, they're doing this in New York. They're doing this in Virginia. You know, let's put a stop to this. And Representative Farrington did mention that a candidate for governor is interested in putting a stop to this. Well, you know, I want to put a stop to her. We shouldn't be stopping good things. You know, it's hard enough to find volunteers to do tough work, and you know, we should just leave them alone.
So on that note, leave them alone. Would you support an amendment that also shields abortion providers in healthcare, reproductive healthcare centers, so that we don't mess with what they're doing too? So we just bind future legislators.
I'll tell you a story. Okay.
Sure.
My sister died at the age of 42. Okay, she had uterine cancer.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, but in her own words, I'll have to clean this up a little bit. But if I could have got my butt off a bar stool, they would have found this in time. And I was bringing her back and forth to Boston for her cancer treatments, and she was looking out the window of the car, and out of her mouth came out, I killed my baby. That's why I drank so much. Okay, she was in and out of mental institutions for a good chunk of her life because she killed her baby. She had an abortion. Okay, nobody at Planned Parenthood will tell any of those women that could happen. Okay, to me that's disgusting. Okay, you'll never see me stop fighting that because of it. Okay, that they're not providing true health care, because true health care will tell you about all the things that could happen, and they don't.
Well,
Good, thank you.
thank you very much, Representative. Ian Hewitt.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon, members of the committee. Ian Hewitt for Cornerstone in support of House Bill 1416. This is, in some sense, I think maybe the most moderate bill I've testified in favor of. It effectively just says you cannot, if you're a state agency or municipality, de facto prohibit pregnancy resource centers or force them to refer for abortions Certainly, if I'd seen this bill a few years ago, I would have said this just restates basic constitutional law and it's unnecessary. The reason we think it's necessary now is we think pregnancy resource centers could be presently vulnerable to the kind of conduct this bill prohibits from state agencies or municipalities, and we think that for two reasons. One is that we think there is a pattern of our state agencies in New Hampshire acting in a way that is partisan and that is contrary to or beyond what state statutes allow. And secondly, we think our federal courts in this region, and especially the First Circuit Court of Appeals, have repeatedly shown that if there is controversial speech that is not politically progressive, then federal courts are willing to frame that speech in a way that categorizes it as harmful in some way that puts it beyond the scope of First Amendment protections. This has been a consistent pattern. So we could quite readily end up in a situation where PRCs are facing difficulties from a state agency, and we're not going to have constitutional relief absent some kind of statutory judicial remedy like the remedy created by this law. One last note I'll add is that we do support the law in its current form, but we would suggest nonetheless on page 2 that on lines 5 and 6, the words after shall not be struck. So through the adoption, striking that on through the end of the word measure. And the reason for that is that
One more time, I'm sorry.
Yes, Chair Gannon, that's page 2, lines 5 and 6.
Thank you.
So after shall not, and then leaving in place line 7 onward. And the reason for that is that, as you can see, the injuries sought to be prohibited are really enumerated on lines 7 through 13, whereas lines 5 and 6 currently say through the adoption or enactment of any law, ordinance, or policy. So it could lead to some unnecessary confusion, not a deal breaker or not necessarily a terrible confusion, but some unnecessary confusion in court around standing if the injury needs to be framed as the adoption of a policy doing lines 7 through 13, as opposed to just pointing to the injuries on lines 7 through 13. So some clarity could be added by striking those words, but we would support the bill in its current form. And I'd be happy to take any legal or other questions.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So we heard earlier about that about some of these pregnancy resource centers are just offering goods to people who are pregnant and parenting classes, et cetera, and some are offering medical care. And
Yes.
yeah, so at current, none of this is touched by state law. This would be the state getting involved with an industry that enjoys absolute freedom to do what they do and has. No one's proposing doing anything. Where do you see the threat? Is it just Massachusetts? Is it Vermont? Why do we think that this big boogeyman is breathing down the necks of New Hampshire, who has literally never taken the advice of anything Massachusetts does?
Well, there's two parts to your question, Senator, and I'll take the second one first. And the answer to your question is what we are trying to prevent here is not a situation where legislators in New Hampshire pass Massachusetts or Vermont-like laws, because of course that could happen even if we do pass this wonderful bill. It would be just as easy for the bill in question to override this one and institute, some sort of anti-PRC legal framework. What we are concerned about is that our present state agencies are already sufficiently politically partisan and have shown a pattern of being willing to go beyond or contrary to state statutes, that a state agency or a municipality could on its own use some neutral sounding regulation to go after a PRC, and we could be effectively without constitutional relief because of the way our federal courts, and especially the First Circuit Court of Appeals, treats regular constitutional free speech cases. And the first part of your question was about medical centers, and does this create some kind of revolutionary new protections around the practice of medicine for PRCs? And the reason I would say, Senator, that we don't need to add in a new definition of medical pregnancy resource center is if you look on the provisions you were referring to, Senator Lund's 23 through 29 on page 2, the protections that are given to medical pregnancy resource centers, they're not really given any special carve-outs allowing them to do anything radical. There's nothing in here that would prohibit a medical authority, licensing authority, regulatory authority from applying any kind of neutral restriction on medical practice towards pregnancy resource centers. What these two provisions would prohibit is they would prohibit a regulatory or a licensing authority from preventing a PRC from offering medical testing, et cetera, because it is a PRC. It would not be a free-for-all. There's nothing in here that would exempt them from neutral medical regulation or licensing requirements.
Can I follow up, Mr. Chair?
You may.
So, would you take a follow-up?
Please.
Thank you very much. So you've asserted twice that our state agencies show a partisan bent. And the state agencies have commissioners that are appointed by the executive office, which has been held by Republicans for the last 6 years in a row. And so what is the pattern that you are seeing that you feel is endangering the pregnancy resource center's existence? I'm struggling with what that pattern is. Can you tell us and show us what agencies are raising those flags for you? You say you're seeing a pattern. What's the pattern? Where is it coming from?
So two parts of your question, Senator.
Yeah.
So in the first instance, we're a Christian organization. We more often end up endorsing Republicans than Democrats. But I don't have any problem saying if you're suggesting that our complaints about state agencies being partisan is not the fault of Democratic legislators, I'm quite happy to agree with that. But you want me to point to some examples, the second part of your question, of partisanship by state agencies. So some of the examples, I can think of some more, but some that I would point to would be DHHS under the 2022 Patients' Bill of Rights was tasked with enforcing the Patients' Bill of Rights by imposing administrative fines on medical providers who deny patient care on the basis of vaccination status. And DHHS for about a year simply categorically refused to enforce those provisions, even as some medical providers were simply openly and brazenly denying access to certain medical care like organ transplantation on the basis of vaccination status when the legislature had entrusted DHHS to use that fine to enforce that law. Just to give a couple of others that are a little bit less pertinent, the 2021 critical race theory ban that tasked the Department of Education with using the Educator Code of Conduct to penalize teachers who teach that, for example, white students are inherently privileged because of their status as white students. Cornerstone helped 67 parents around New Hampshire report violations of that prohibition to the Department of Education. The Department of Education categorically refused ever to even open an investigation into a single one of those violations. And then just to give another one, kind of everyone knows about that's a little bit less niche. Back in 2018, before the repeal of the sticker inspection law, there was kind of a more moderate compromise that went into effect where the Department of Safety was supposed to crack down on auto shops that were failing people for cosmetic rust. And the auto shops essentially said, we're going to keep failing people for cosmetic rust. And the Department of Safety continually said, we're not going to do anything to stop this. Legislature, you're just going to have to pass another law if you want to see results. So there is this continuous pattern of people in state agencies having a certain political program just not being accountable to the democratic process and requiring further and further judicially enforceable remedies in state statute.
Last question.
Okay. No, I think I'm done here. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for your answers.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Abby Prudham Home. Good afternoon, Abby.
Good afternoon. My name is Abby Prudhomme. I am a middle school teacher down in Nashua, St. Christopher Academy. So I was able to make it because it is our April vacation. And hearing a little bit of the dialogue going back and forth, actually, before I go on this tangent, I'm also on the board for Birthright in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is a pregnancy resource center that does help. Last year, they had over 500 client visits. So we do help women in crisis pregnancies. But I had a funny moment last year with one of my students because I was teaching them something that they had learned last year, and the student was like, do we really have to listen to this? We already know it. And one of his classmates turned to him and said, well, then this will be easy for you, Jimmy. And hearing a little bit of the going back and forth, if there is absolutely no threat to these pregnancy resource centers, and there absolutely won't be, I guess I just don't see why this is something that can't go forward, because it won't even have any sort of effect whatsoever. I think it is an option on the table because there might be a threat in the future. And so for us, Pregnancy Resource Center, this helps assuage our fears as an added layer of protection, just like a life vest on an airplane. You're never going to need it, except for that one time when maybe you will. So I do support this bill. I do think it's necessary. And I think the beauty of it is it allows for more voices, not less. Women can have the option if they want to go to a Planned Parenthood. No one's stopping them. But at least if they come to a pregnancy resource center, we can provide the care that they need and the care that we are in existence for as well. So yes, I would say that's my main argument.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. What kind of care do you provide at Birthright?
Birthright mainly does provide material care, so diapers and clothing, blankets. We do help with referrals, like if a mother is looking for an ultrasound, we would refer them to Real Options. We've also helped in cases like of homelessness or women who've been in abusive situations get the support they need. We don't provide it ourselves, but we do help to provide the connections if women do come in.
Follow up?
Yes, please. So would you be opposed to an amendment to this bill that would also shield abortion healthcare providers at reproductive healthcare centers?
I don't know if I can really speak to that. Personally speaking, morally speaking, I'm okay with both centers being protected, but in that case, it should be that our center should be protected.
So they both should be protected. Is that your voice kind of tailed?
Yeah.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
No worries. So I don't come here to make an argument for the other side, but that personally speaking would not be something that I would be, horrified for if both were protected. So
have you, Mayor, has the First Amendment rights of the Birthright volunteers, board, or staff members been infringed upon?
Not yet, but again, this is an added layer of protection just so it never will happen, sort of thing.
Last follow-up?
Yep.
Has the state ever asked Birthright to post any materials that would not jive with your stated mission?
Again, not that I'm aware of. Something I was reminded of, though, you mentioned earlier that this is a red state, and I would say that it seems a little bit more like a purple state because, with 2 representatives and 2 senators being Democrats, I think it's more purple. So again, for us, you're right, we've never experienced it, thank God, that our rights have been infringed on or the state has tried to make an effort to do so. But just so we never have to have that worry.
So I'm going to stop there.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it. Liz Neville. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Liz Neville, and I'm the founder and president of the board for St. Gianna's Place. We are a nonprofit home for homeless pregnant mothers and their young children and babies. I'm asking this group to recommend HB 1416 is out to pass. Why does the passage of this bill matter to St. Gianna's Place? This legislation would protect us so that we can continue to carry out our mission of offering transitional living to the mothers and children who would literally be homeless without us. We offer a safe, nurturing home for 1 to 2 years for moms. We provide them with the skills that they need to live independently after they leave us, like budgeting, cooking, nutrition, parenting classes. We help them to get their GED if that's necessary. We help them with job training, taking college courses, and we even help them get their car license and buy a car. At St. Gianna's Place, we care deeply about each mother. We pour a lot of love and time into helping them heal. We're faith-based, so we teach them that about their God-given dignity, and this makes a big difference in their lives when they realize that they have value. Mental health is a huge priority for us. We offer them counseling. A lot of the moms that come to us are abused. They're beaten down. A lot of times they've just come out of rehab with no place to go. The families they come from are literally broken, and oftentimes they've been raised by drug-addicted parents. But with the amount of time that we spend with them, we see that their lives become transformed. We help them to build their confidence. They learn to love themselves and know that they matter. We need this piece of legislation for protection so that we can continue doing the good work that we do. Thank you very much.
Yes, go ahead, Sunder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Newell and
Neville.
Neville, thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Neville, for your testimony. Has there been any state interference in the way you deliver the services that you do?
No, not yet.
Do you provide any medical services?
No, aside from counseling, I don't know if that's considered medical, but outside of counseling, we do not. But we make referrals to the medical facilities that exist in our community.
Let's follow up. So you're a Catholic organization.
We are an organization in the Catholic tradition. We are not under the Diocese of Manchester, so we do not call ourselves a Catholic home. We call ourselves a home in the Catholic tradition.
Okay. So you're a home in the Catholic tradition.
Yes.
That the state is not interfering in the work that you do, and no one is threatening to close your business down or tell you how to do your business, correct?
That is correct, not yet.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Phyllis Woods. Good afternoon, Ms. Woods. How you doing?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Gannon. My name is Phyllis Woods of Dover, and I served previously on the House Judiciary Committee for a number of years, so I appreciate your work here. I also have volunteered for several different pregnancy centers. I work for Birthright for over 25 years, doing a number of things in the background, like fundraising, doing their books, and working on the board, and also for a medical pregnancy center, Options for Women in Dover. And I want to say that one of the things that people had a problem with, and I can see here you have a concern with, is that there was no need for this bill because we are not in jeopardy currently. Meanwhile, pregnancy centers across the country continue to experience assaults on their freedom of speech. And we've already heard from Delaware, California, New York, New Jersey, Vermont, Illinois, and Washington are just some of the states that have enacted laws targeting the operations and messaging of pregnancy centers. Given this onslaught, I think it is prudent for us to act proactively and to pass a bill to protect our pregnancy centers' freedom of speech. Basically, that's what this is about. Right now, pro-life lawmakers and advocates are sounding the alarm over two bills that are introduced in the Louisiana State House that would undermine the ability of pregnancy centers there to assist mothers and babies in need. And a pregnancy health center in California is in the AG's crosshairs for offering women a second chance at choice. And of course, we've already heard from what's going on closer to home here in Massachusetts with their government-funded campaign to shut down centers. Vermont has pursued legislative action against them, and Maine is weighing regulatory restrictions. And I will say regarding Massachusetts, which was going on a couple of years ago, then candidate Kelly Ayotte, who is now Governor Ayotte, took me aside during her campaign and said, Phyllis, this is what's happening in all of the states here in New England. And as you know, she didn't want us to follow in the footsteps of Massachusetts. And she said, they are going to put our centers in jeopardy, and we can't let that happen here in New Hampshire. Congressman Maggie Goodlander, as you've already heard, put out a statement and had as a plank in her platform, she said, I'll work to eliminate dishonest predatory practices at so-called crisis pregnancy centers that spread misinformation rather than providing genuine health care services. We cannot continue to allow illegitimate clinics to operate as dishonest health care providers. I believe this is the same sentiment that others have referred to, is echoed by Cindy Warmington and also Joyce Craig. I think it's unconscionable that some of our Democratic New Hampshire leaders want to deprive women of the wonderful services that are provided totally and completely free of cost to absolutely any woman in any kind of pregnancy scenario, even if they are abortion-minded. As another representative said, there's no one that comes into a pregnancy center that's not aware that one of their choices is to have an abortion. And we counsel them certainly and provide the same kind of free to them care. By the way, nothing is free, as you know. These centers are supported by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people throughout the state who believe so much in this kind of free and supportive, loving, non-judgmental, confidential, helpful care to women in crisis, that they donate a ton of their money, like all of us who put our money where our mouth is, to support these centers. Not 1 cent of government funds comes into this. I believe in 2024, we have conservative estimates of $1.5 million worth of free to the woman services that is provided, and that continues to grow. So you have a very strong support in this state for these centers, not only the thousands of women that have benefited but from the services, but also the people that have volunteered by the thousands and the tens of thousands of people who donate a lot of money to keep these centers open. The center, to answer a little bit of your concern, I think earlier about medical centers, As far as I know, just about every medical center in New Hampshire has either volunteer medical staff or paid medical staff. For example, in Options in Rochester, we have 2 ultrasound machines, and we say that we will provide free pre-abortion screening. So if the women who are abortion minded and want to come in, we still serve them, and we'll provide them the same kind of service. Unlike Planned Parenthood and the abortion centers who say, come in, we will give you a for-profit abortion. If you choose to want to keep the child or know what your other options are, we can't help you here. So we will take those women in. So the type of services that we have to have if we have an ultrasound machine, we have to have a licensed sonographer to be able to read those. We have to have medical personnel on board that are overseen by a medical doctor or a medical facility. The type of services besides ultrasound, for example, we would give them a medical grade pregnancy test. We had one woman come in that had done 3 over-the-counter self-administered pregnancy tests.
You're doing really well. It's just like a lot of people, so if you can wrap up.
Certainly.
Thank you, ma'am.
Who we gave the medical test to, and she was determined not to be pregnant. So I hope that you understand that it's a little delusional to think that we are not more than perhaps one election away from losing or having these centers be in jeopardy. So I implore you to please pass this bill, which will not cost the state a single cent and will be appreciated and supported by, I believe, a majority of the public. Thank you.
Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you,
You'll take
Mr. Chair.
questions.
Thank
You'll
you.
take questions?
Will you take questions, Honorable Woods? Will
Certainly.
you take questions?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Woods, for taking my question. So you mentioned that Options provides to,
Cuckoo clock, Representative Cuckoo clock. Okay, go ahead, Senator.
so that your center has 2 ultrasound machines with licensed sonographers, and that you provide some medical care
Yes.
through your center. And so those, where are those sonographers licensed? Are they licensed in the state of New Hampshire?
Oh, yes, they would have to
Okay.
be, absolutely. Yes.
So if a provider is licensed in the state of New Hampshire, their license is governed by DHHS and OPLC. So they're actually bound by the patient's Bill of Rights
Right.
to discuss benefits, risks, and costs appropriate to treatment and treatment alternatives.
Absolutely.
So how does your center provide that full scope of treatment alternatives to women who are coming into your center?
First, I will say that, as a member of the board or volunteers to someone, number one, we don't interact in any way with any client that comes through the door. I know there was some question about whether or not the services were totally private and confidential, and they certainly are. They're very well guarded. But the kind of treatment that we have an advocate or a nurse meet with the patient, they will get a complete history of what's going on with the client. They will get the medical grade pregnancy test. If it shows positive, then they will be referred, asked. Everything is permission based. If they would like to have an ultrasound or even a Doppler to be able to hear the heartbeat and so forth, all of that is permission-based. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, well, may I follow up?
yes,
Thank
you may.
you. So, I mean, you have testified that your center offers a full scope of options, hence the name options, I guess. But your center actually says that our center does not perform or refer for abortion services. So you don't offer a full scope of services. You actually carve that out and you offer different services. So it's not the full scope of services. And, okay, so, but that full scope of services that you were talking about would be covered under the patient's Bill of Rights, particularly if it is administered by a licensed professional from a New Hampshire licensing board. Is that not a conflict for your medical professionals?
I'm afraid I really don't know. I really don't know how, what you're looking for here or how to answer that. I think that we do list the services that we, that we do provide. I'm not sure if, I think they would have to go to a private physician, their own gynecologist, to be able to get that sort of thing. We do not counsel. That's the whole point of the pregnancy centers, that we do not counsel or refer for abortions. I mean, I think that's the freedom of speech and the conscience clause that we're trying to protect.
That you operate under right
That's
now.
right.
So, may I follow up, Mr. Chair?
You may.
Thank you. So when your sonographers are doing ultrasounds, are they doing diagnostic ultrasounds for fetal anomalies or ectopic pregnancies?
Oh, absolutely, yes. There are special programs but they cannot diagnose.
They cannot?
No, they do not diagnose. They would certainly refer someone to have a follow-up with a physician if they can see that there is an anomaly.
So that's a half diagnosis or what does that mean?
That means if they see that there is a problem, they will, for example, if it's an ectopic pregnancy, they will tell them that they do not have a viable pregnancy.
Okay, so they're diagnosing ectopic pregnancies. That's a diagnosis, right?
They can see that,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
May I go?
Sure.
So moving on from there, you've got people who use your services and you offer pregnancy tests and ultrasounds and counseling. And so at some point, you've got to do an intake, right?
We do an intake, absolutely.
You do an intake. And the information that you gather from people who come into your center for that intake, what do you do with that information?
The information is kept in certainly our private files. That is not for, distribution or public consumption, if that's what you're asking. Because we use it, I'm sorry, because that information is used to try to encourage people to come back for a follow-up and to give them time so that they're making prudent decisions. And so, for example, if they come in and they're too early to have a diagnosis or any kind of definitive definition of whether or not they are indeed pregnant with a viable pregnancy, we ask them to come back in a week or two so that we can follow up. So we certainly keep that information. And we keep that information because that same patient may come in a year or two later. Also, maybe they had gone for an abortion, maybe they're pregnant again, and they come back into the center. So it's important for us to keep on file all of that information.
May I follow up?
You may.
But this information is not protected by HIPAA. Correct?
That is technically correct, but as I said, you know, having served for several years on the board, there is absolutely no leakage or no public disclosure or even private disclosure of who has come. We don't even know who comes in, what their names are. This is a service that's available to.
I'm sorry, you don't know your patients' names?
No, I do not, no. No, absolutely. I've never known a single patient's name.
Are you saying as a board member or your intakes don't take names?
Oh, no, the intake people.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the clarification. That would have
Do you
been
have a
difficult to
final
follow up.
follow-up, Senator?
Yeah, final follow-up. So HIPAA doesn't apply to you at all, but it should apply to your licensed providers, should it not?
Yes, it does.
So how do you differentiate what the licensed providers provide in that medical record keeping from the intake data that is really not protected at all, could be used by a third party at any time? You might say you're, confidential, but you're not bound by any confidentiality, and you don't have protection from the AG's office for confidentiality, correct?
We certainly provide them with all of the patient's Bill of Rights, and I'm not even certain that the doctors or the medical facility that is overseeing what the center is doing, they may get some information, but we don't disclose the names even to them. As far as, but they would certainly be bound by HIPAA.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very enlightening testimony. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Janice Woods. Janice, you are definitely an optimist. 17-10 losses, fired the coaches, and you're still wearing the colors. So
I keep hoping.
okay, it's early yet in the season, right?
That's right.
I'd go green if I was you.
Yes,
It's looking good for them.
exactly. My name's Janice Woods. I live in Dover, New Hampshire. I'm a small business owner. I am a volunteer and a supporter of HB 1416. And you're asking questions that I certainly am not in a position to answer, but I did want to let you know that I've seen firsthand what these different organizations, and there's lots of different kinds of organizations, some that offer just holistic health, mental health, clothing, food. I've helped to contribute all of those things, plus strollers and car seats and clothes, whatever different organizations need. I know that there's certain organizations out in other towns that actually take in homeless or pregnant women, and I can tell you firsthand how that has made a major difference. My big fear with this particular subject matter is that it is very easy to change in any line or any different type of regulation or organization, or even a regulation law to remove this kind of support. And even though it is something that I believe that is a prolific issue in the state of New Hampshire in terms of support, I think there is a lot of support for these organizations, that it is in danger. And I think that having this particular bill is one which will help to confirm and firm up this support. I don't think there's any general need for Planned Parenthood or any other organizations that provide other types of services. That's not going to go away. I would prefer that it did, but unfortunately, it is something that we don't have to necessarily worry about. I think that the services that planned and unplanned pregnancy centers do provide are unique and should be supported. So that's my 2 cents.
My only question is, are you related to Phyllis?
Yes, she's my mom.
Okay. Look like sisters.
She'll appreciate that.
Oh, it works sometimes.
No, it doesn't.
So are you concerned, as she is, because she mentioned Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, we're surrounded by states that have started imposing?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's very interesting you bring that up because I have a space that I rent out to doctors and nurses. And I did have a nurse that became pregnant. Obviously, I won't share any names or information, but she took the pill and it didn't go very well. She went to Vermont to get that service. It's very easy for everyone in the state of New Hampshire to go anywhere else they need to get those services. There's no support necessarily after they go to get any kind of service, and that is something that these pregnancy centers do provide. It's a lot of different issues after those kinds of treatments.
Very good. You go ahead, Cinderella.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. So I appreciate your passion for what you do, and I served in the legislature with your mother. She's lovely. I'm glad she came in.
She's tough.
But is it feasible that the folks from Planned Parenthood think that they might be under attack too? Just as you feel you're
I
under
think
attack.
that there's, both sides are mobilized. I mean, this is an issue, obviously nationwide, ever since what happened with Roe v. Wade and all of that. I'm sure that they are concerned, but I don't see that going away. I don't necessarily believe that they think they're going to be going away. Plus, there's also other places people can get those services with their doctors or whatever. So I think that it is right now a legal process, and people can get those services if they want them. I do believe that the pregnancy centers offer something as an alternative. If you are a 16-year-old who's scared to death and don't know where to go and have parents, that are scaring you, then you want to maybe go to a place that will say, here are your options. Here are some things that we could do to help you. I know that my friends who have had the service have had abortions. They always say, well, pro-lifers don't do anything for people after. Oh, yes, they do. I mean, you should take a tour. You should see what these folks do. I mean, it is incredible. They follow these folks for many years. They provide every kind of service, anything they need, from housing down to food, anything at all. So I think that this is something that needs to be locked in, that needs to be supported, because it is very easy to change the law and to remove something that doesn't cost the taxpayers any money and offers the people in this state a tax-free, supportive environment.
Very good. Thank you.
Final
Yep.
comment. So you don't think it's fair to protect both sides equally?
Well, I don't know if there's any need to protect Planned Parenthood. I think that they have protections already embedded in the system. I really do believe that anything, related to abortion is being protected, despite, the Roe v. Wade decision. I think that at this point, the people that are in danger are the ones who are looking for alternatives.
Very good.
Personal opinion.
Did your mom turn in her testimony? If you see that she does, if she didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia Springer. Good afternoon, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I don't know about excellent, but I was on the very good side, but I like your excellent. Go ahead.
As you said, I'm Sylvia Springer, and good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in strong support of HB 1416. This isn't about which side of the issue we're on. And I'm going to remind you of somebody, Harriet Patience Dame, Are you familiar with that name? I knew you would be. The courageous woman whose portrait hangs in the hall just around the corner dedicated her life to saving lives. That's what Harriet would have stood up before you today to defend. During the Civil War, when captured, 3 times she tended the wounds of the enemy soldiers. Her life was dedicated to saving lives. It wasn't a political issue. These centers and all those who choose their time and their heart are to encourage the saving of lives. That is what they are all about. Government or politics should not have any place in it. In Philippians 2:3-5, it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves." That's how Harriet lived her life for the soldiers that she cared for, and that is what the people of these centers do. They value the lives of these mothers and their babies above themselves. Again, there is no place for government or politics. Thus, they've chosen to write this House bill. After our country fought and won its independence from England, our New Hampshire forefathers wrote the New Hampshire State Constitution. And Article 2 is in reference to our natural rights, that all men have certain natural rights, essential and inherent rights, among which are the enjoying, in parentheses, giving these expectant moms the joy of her baby, and defending life, parentheses, the centers giving these women the right to defend their babies, and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. In a word, of seeking and obtaining happiness. And in quotations, the happiness of being a mom. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by this state on account of race, creed, color, sex, or national origin. Our founding fathers were very explicit in the wording of our New Hampshire Constitution. They wanted to be sure the government could not interfere with our God-given natural rights, which takes me to Article 4, rights of conscience unalienable. Among the natural rights, some are in their very nature unalienable because no equivalent can be given or received for them. Of this kind are the rights of conscience. It is from their conscience that the people of these centers are set up and operate. I ask each of you to vote in support of HB 1416 to be sure that the New Hampshire Constitution that you all took an oath to protect is honored today. These privately run centers must be allowed to run without any interference of government on any level. Just down the hall from where we are sitting is a hall of flags that still have the dry blood stains of brave soldiers who fought for our national and New Hampshire Constitution. I'm asking each of you to remember your oaths when sworn to protect our New Hampshire Constitution that these brave soldiers gave their lives blood for. So again, I ask you please vote to support this bill. You consistently ask these centers, why are they having problems with the government interference yet? You already know they aren't. This is not happening yet. But let me remind you, 5 years ago, we didn't need litigation to protect women and girls from men in private spaces and bathrooms. So from that perspective, it is wisdom for a bill like this to pass to protect these private centers from government interference. I'll leave you with this last thought from Winston Churchill. The price of greatness is responsibility. For your tenure as a New Hampshire senator to be remembered as great, you must honor our national and state constitutions. Thank you, and have a God bless day.
Thank you very much. We're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Catherine Kelly?
Hi, my name is Catherine Kelly. I'm from Pennacook Pregnancy Center in Manchester, New Hampshire. We're down on Chestnut Street, inner city of Manchester. I've been there for 13 years, and I'm going to keep this short, but I think the reason we need this bill is because we provide very valuable services for free. We get no government money, no tax money. And I want to protect this for future generations. That's what I'm thinking about, like any company would, any business would. You look ahead, you don't just look at today, looking for the future kids are going to be born. So like one year we bought 65 car seats for families. cribs, whatever you need, high chairs, diapers, wipes, all the basic stuff. Yeah, we're non-medical. We don't have a medical. We're just a resource place. We're located 1 block from Planned Parenthood, and we encourage the women to have these children. We're going to help them with whatever they need for any reason. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. No, we're all good. Thank you. Is it a para bishop? I thought it was Tara Bishop. Tara? See, you got it.
what is it?
It's a good Irish girl with Tara, I can tell.
Thank you. Yes, I am. Thank you, Senator Gannon and committee. My name is Tara Bishop. I am a board member of Pennacook Pregnancy Center in Manchester. Catherine Kelly, our director, just spoke. As she mentioned, we've been around for 13 years. We're a nonprofit organization. We are our own humble place. We do not have any federal funding. We don't have any local government funding. We don't have expensive lobbyists. We are here out of the goodness of our own hearts. And I think the one thing that all pregnancy centers have in common, whether they offer medical services or simply referrals as we do, is that we have one thing we do. Doesn't matter what the service is. We care about people we don't know. There's something that we do that's different for every client. Somebody may come in and need help with their immigration status. The vast majority of our clients are from other countries and are new to the country. So we get them the help they need. We refer them to other medical facilities. We help them for years. That's what I think the difference is between the alternative. So you go somewhere, you get a service, end of story, the story ends there. You choose life, you come to us, we're your partner. Last week, someone came into our center and she asked Kathy, "Do you remember me?" And Kathy said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't." She said, "Oh, I was here 8 or 9 years ago and you helped me when I had my first baby. I'm pregnant again. Will you help me now?" And of course, the answer was yes. We've helped people have baby showers. We've had baby showers that rivaled mine and my friends, beautiful showers. There was one woman in particular who was standing outside Planned Parenthood, dropped off on a cold January day from Brazil, had no one to speak to, no one understood what she was saying, didn't feel like she should go in. We got her a translator. Somebody was outside, was able to connect her with a translator, walked her up the street to the center, and now that woman lives with the family that was the translator. It just was a turn of events that happened. So amazing things happen when we help women. And something else I want to bring up, which you may have heard, it's not open yet, but Pennacook Pregnancy Center has generously donated almost $45,000. So Manchester will have the first safe haven baby box north of Pennsylvania. These boxes, there's 77 babies that have been saved by these boxes across the country. We will be the 24th state that has one. If you drive by Central Fire Station on Pine Street, that side you'll see the box. It's already installed. There's tape across it because we're waiting for Safe Haven Baby Box to come to Manchester and officially have us open it with a press conference. Mayor Rouet has given his support for it, the Manchester Fire Department. They're all trained, ready to go. We tested the box. It's tested 7 days. So this all started when baby Grace was unfortunately found in Pine Island Pond last year, and the community came together. The difference here is Pennacook Pregnancy Center offered the money to make it happen. It was $17,620 to purchase the box from Safe Haven Baby Box. Then there was inside construction due to make everything ADA compliant for the fire station. And that was $27,000 we volunteered to give, so the city of Manchester didn't have to come up with the money. So now, hopefully, we never need it. But as Kathy says, if one baby is saved from this box in the future, it'll be worth the donations. And there's nothing we gain from it. Again, we are just here to help people we don't know and just to change lives.
I have no questions, but thank you for doing the baby box. That's great.
Yes.
Senator, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Is Pennacook Pregnancy Center affiliated with Heartbeat International?
Yes, we're members.
Okay, so when you do your intake forms, right, how is all of that information is available to Heartbeat International, correct?
I'm a board member. I can't speak to that. I don't do intakes.
Okay. But the data breaches for Heartbeat International for patient has hurt patient privacy.
They don't get our data. Heartbeat International doesn't get our patient data. We're a nonprofit. They might get aggregate numbers for reporting purposes about how many clients we see. We don't give them medical information.
So you do take medical information from patients?
Think, what kind of medical information do you need? Like, are you pregnant? Here's a pregnancy test. Yeah, we offer free pregnancy tests.
And then you keep that data as to whether someone is pregnant or not?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then you keep data on the progression of their pregnancy while they're in your...
to other medical providers. We're not a medical provider. We provide free pregnancy tests and referrals. We refer for healthcare, housing. We provide rent service and assistance. We provide formula when there's a formula shortage. We find specific formulas that people can't afford and we buy it for them. We buy car seats, we get cribs. We do all the things that people can't afford, including diapers and wipes. So we are not a medical facility.
Okay, may I follow up?
Yes, you may.
But you do say that you offer confidential pregnancy testing. So how does the confidentiality part work? If you are not HIPAA compliant, how do you keep patients' medical information about the status of their pregnancies or not pregnancies private?
I would defer again to Kathy on that, but I'm not an intake person. This is a pregnancy test that happens in the pregnancy center, and the person who administers the test to them would know that and keep it in our locked files.
Different question?
Different question. You do counsel against abortion healthcare services though, correct?
We counsel about all the options that are available, which include child rearing, adoption, and abortion. We talk about all the options and what the ramifications are. We are pro-life. We don't refer for abortions. As Kathy mentioned, we're a block from Planned Parenthood. Everyone knows where Planned Parenthood is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think it's Kelly Lindholm in the ballpark. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kelly Youngholm. I am an executive director of a pregnancy center here in Concord, New Hampshire. We are a medical facility, so I will welcome any questions about that, clear up any confusion. We also do parenting classes, fatherhood mentoring, and abortion recovery programs for women. We are 100% donor funded. We do not take any form of payment or anything from the taxpayer. Our center, like many others, we mobilize hundreds of volunteers. We provide thousands of dollars in services to the community in education and material assistance, again, without sending a bill to taxpayers. When a woman receives parenting education, we help reduce crisis-driven emergency visits. When she receives material support like diapers and formula, we help stabilize families before they require public assistance. When she receives emotional and mental health support after a traumatic experience, we help prevent long-term crisis care costs. We are not a political organization. We are a community safety net. We walk with women before, during, and after their pregnancies and their families. This bill, to me, ensures that that centers like ours can continue serving without intimidation or harassment. When I first started, Jean Shaheen wrote on her website that we were fake clinics. After the Dobbs decision, Jane Revenge called me personally, told me where my 3 grown children live, and every morning when I drove around the corner to see if there was any damage to our building, many times it was spray painted that we were a fake clinic. So I've personally experienced that in the state of New Hampshire. So I think this bill, why not? Just protect us. But I will welcome questions because I know you have a lot about our medical services. Oh, but I know one that you have asked that I would like to clarify. We use an EHR, electronic health records. The only people that have access to any medical information are our licensed medical director, who is a doctor at Concord Hospital, and our 2 registered nurses. That's it.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, thank you. So how does this bill protect you from vandalism? And did you report the vandalism?
I did. Yep.
So how does this bill protect from that?
Well, I was just referring to the fact that you have asked previous people sitting here
Yeah.
if they have been harassed or if they have experienced anything. So I was
I
just
didn't
saying,
ask that.
okay.
But I will ask you, what I did ask, and I'll ask you too, is has the state of New Hampshire ever interfered with the operation of your business, asked you to post any information that does not jive with the mission of your business, or done anything to get in the way of the hundreds of volunteers that you recruit and the thousands of dollars that you raise?
Yes.
What has the state of New Hampshire
I
done?
believe that when Jean Shaheen posted on her website to stay away from us because we are a fake clinic, yes, the answer is yes.
When was
Wouldn't you
that?
agree? 2021, I think.
2021. So may I follow up?
Yep.
In the last 5 years, have you been unable to fundraise or recruit volunteers and have clients stopped coming to your doors?
No.
Okay,
But I have
thank
seen
you.
colleagues in neighboring states that have. So
So I'm sorry, you were just saying that you sort of are in fear that as the neighboring states have, so might New Hampshire.
Right, what's the question?
You think, I believe you testified that you're sort of concerned that the neighboring states have acted against people like you, institutions like you.
Of course,
And
but
so-
like the senator has said many times, New Hampshire hasn't so far.
Yep, so
And I'm thankful for that, but why wouldn't they? If we
All
had
set.
different leadership.
Senator Ridden.
Ellie, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm sorry that you have been the object of harassment. Do you think if we are going to pass a law that protects pregnancy resource centers, we should also be protecting reproductive
Every
health centers?
citizen, yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Vera Chesborough? Chesborn? Help me with that, Vera.
It's Vera Cheeseborough.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you.
My name is Vera Cheeseborough, and I've served as the Executive Director of Aspire Women's Center in Laconia, New Hampshire, for the last 5 years. Every day we walk alongside women and families facing unexpected pregnancy, often during some of the most overwhelming moments of their lives. I'm here today to express my support for HB 1416. At Aspire, we are a medical pregnancy center operating under licensed medical professionals. We're committed to providing accurate, evidence-based information. Our staff is trained, and we rely on well-vetted medical resources to ensure that what we share is truthful, current, and responsible. The trust our patients place in us matters deeply. When a woman comes through our doors, she is often under pressure, facing a decision that feels urgent. Our role is not to direct her, but to provide a safe and supportive place where she can slow down and truly process her situation. We walk her through all of her options: parenting, adoption, and medical information about abortion, so she can understand what each involves. We also provide medical services such as pregnancy testing and ultrasounds and STI testing, all which are recommended, which will help her better understand her health, her pregnancy, and the timeline that she's working with. All of these services are provided at no cost, both to the patient and to the state of New Hampshire. We do not profit off of any decision that our patients make, either way. Centers like ours are supported largely by the communities we serve, local individuals and voters, churches, and businesses who believe women should have access to compassionate care and accurate information. This reflects what our communities truly want: support for women in those critical moments. What we consistently see is that when women are given time and space and clear information, they are able to make decisions that they feel confident about. This is what true choice looks like. Choice is not just having options, it's fully understanding those options before making a decision that could have a lifelong impact. And without that, decisions become more reactive than informed. HB 1416 protects centers like ours so we can continue offering truthful information, compassionate care, and critical services without compromising our mission. Our goal is simple, that every woman leaves knowing that she was heard, respected, cared for, and fully informed. Thank you for your time.
So just tell me a little bit on the information, so they come to you and you tell them about parenting, if they're pregnant, parenting, adoption, and you give them medical information about abortions. And that's because of the patient bill of rights is why you give the latter, correct?
Well, we want to be truthful. As faith-based nonprofit, we're not required to abide by HIPAA, but we choose to have a privacy policy in place to protect our patients' information. As Kelly had said, we do have electronic health records that are seen by our registered nurses and our doctors. She's their medical director. So we do provide accurate information on all the options based on what the patient requests. So if they do not want to hear about abortion, we don't talk about it. If they don't want to hear about adoption, we don't talk about it. If they don't want to hear about parenting, we don't talk about it.
Very good. Questions? Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you very much. So Aspire is listed as an affiliate organization of Heartbeat International. So they host the platform that you use, that you can integrate your electronic health records.
We do not. We are an affiliate of CareNet and also Heartbeat and Preborn as well. We do not share any of that patient information with them besides maybe number of patients that we see and the number of medical services that we offer. So how many pregnancy tests we do a year, how many ultrasounds we do a year, how much STI testing we do a year. But we do not share that information with them. We're not required to. They don't ask for it, to be quite blunt. They don't ask for it.
Okay. So how do you host your electronic medical records platform? Who do you host that with?
We have eKairos.
And is that affiliated with CareNet, Preborn, or Heartbeat International? Or you pay for that independently?
I'm not actually sure of that information. I know that a lot of places use it. There are many different platforms that a lot of places use. It really depends upon the center.
Okay. So may I follow up? Thank you. So the information that you collect on people who come in and get services from Aspire is hosted on eKairos, which we're not sure is where it's affiliated, and that's not protected under HIPAA, correct?
Well, we're not required to be.
You're not required to be. The medical professionals that are licensed by the state of New Hampshire that work for your organization, are they not required to abide by HIPAA regulations?
They are.
They are.
And we
So
do
how does that work?
We do sign agreements with eKairos and Kelly, you could probably help me there, with any platform that might receive any client information. We do sign business associate agreements with them to protect the client's information. So it is not open for the public. It's not to be sold. It's not to be distributed.
What is the recourse for a patient or client whose medical information that's collected under your electronic health records? What is their recourse if your platform or your electronic health records have been breached? There is recourse for patients under HIPAA. what recourse do patients and clients have under your MOUs?
I'm not sure. I couldn't answer
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I mean, since we're not required to have it, you know, in the 40 years that we've been in existence, has not been an issue.
Okay, well, it's an issue for Heartbeat International. They've been breached multiple times and are
So, but again, I
being
would go
sued.
back to,
So-
if we're not sharing information with patients or client information with Heartbeat because we're not required to and they don't ask us to, then it's not really an issue.
But you're an affiliate.
Yes, but it's not really an issue with with them getting patient information because they don't have access to our e-Kairos records. We don't share that information with them. So that's kind of a non-issue, I would say. With Heartbeat.
With
Because
Heartbeat,
you're bringing up that Heartbeat
with
would
Heartbeat,
know that
you
information.
believe it's a non-issue. Okay.
Right.
So, in the state of New Hampshire, there's nothing, like the Fetal Life Protection Act does not recognize a right to abortion health care in the state of New Hampshire. And the crisis pregnancy centers have proliferated in the state of New Hampshire. You know, I think we're probably 8-1 at this point. And actually, there's only 3 centers in New Hampshire that provide, there are only 3 places to receive abortion health care, and there's 29 pregnancy healthcare centers, yours being one of them. And in this environment, knowing that every single year, if you're watching, if you're here for this legislation, you probably understand the history that no one's ever tried to come after your business, as we've heard testimony, right? And no one's asked your business to post anything from the state that says you have to do this, or you have to do that, or you have to tell your clients so and such. But we have legislation in the dozens every single year to modify or attack reproductive health care centers. Why do you think, if there's such a tiny group that's being attacked over and over and over again, that an industry that has proliferated to having over 36 centers in the state of New Hampshire is even close to being to having their First Amendment rights even touched? It seems like this is a pretty fertile environment for New Hampshire to grow these businesses.
I guess I was thinking about this as you were talking earlier. Preventative maintenance. If we all have cars. We all bring them in for oil changes. We all bring them in for inspections on a yearly basis. Maybe not anymore. I don't know. I think it's still
Not
up in
anymore.
the air. But we still get our brakes checked out. We still have things that we still go to the doctor every year to make sure that nothing is wrong. So I would just say, in this aspect, we do know what's going on in neighboring states. We do know what's going on around the country. So why, if we are okay with pregnancy centers in New Hampshire, would we not put this into place? Why would we not? Based on everything that's going on around the country. That's what I would ask. Why would we not do that preventative maintenance?
Last follow-up. So along that line, why would we not? Would you openly support an amendment that also shields abortion healthcare providers and the reproductive health centers? Include them in your protections?
Yes, I would. I don't know that there are any abortion centers referring to pregnancy resource centers, just the same as, we're not referring to them. So I would, yes.
Thank you
very much for your testimony. Appreciate it. Michael King. Afternoon, Mr. King.
Afternoon, how are you?
Doing great.
Good. Good afternoon, Chair Gannon and members of the committee. My name is Michael King. I'm the president of Massachusetts Family Institute, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization dedicated to strengthening families in Massachusetts. MFI supports pregnancy resource centers in our state because of the incredible life-saving and life-giving work that they do for women and their babies. I'm here today at the request of some of our New Hampshire friends to explain why HB 1416 is necessary. I speak from firsthand experience in Massachusetts when I say that the war on pregnancy resource centers is real. The pro-abortion lobby in our state has used every page in their playbook to try to undermine their work, and our elected officials have gladly collaborated. Until recently, pregnancy centers in Massachusetts had operated for decades without incident, but after Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, pro-abortion activists immediately began seeking ways to punish these centers for daring to support life. Vandals attacked multiple centers in the middle of the night, leaving behind broken glass, graffiti, and violent threats. At the same time, lawmakers pushed legislation that would have censored pregnancy centers by fining them for so-called deceptive practices without even defining what these practices were. Thankfully, we were able to defeat these measures, but in 2024, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health launched a $1 million, actually closer to $2 million taxpayer-funded smear campaign against pregnancy resource centers, accusing them of lying to the women that they served and of posing a public health threat. These baseless accusations were followed by thinly veiled threats against the licenses of any healthcare provider who worked with the centers and multiple sham investigations against them. The state labeled abortion pill reversal a life-saving medically safe practice as unlawful. While Massachusetts Family Institute's legal center is suing the state over these unethical actions, pregnancy centers continue to be branded with a scarlet letter by our state government. If all of this can happen just over the border in Massachusetts, it can happen here as well. But if our state had a bill like HB 1416 in place, centers would have been much better protected from these attacks. If this bill passes, New Hampshire pregnancy centers won't have to worry about being punished just because they don't offer abortion. Healthcare providers won't have to worry about losing their licenses simply because they offer safe and effective abortion pill reversal. And women and children in this state will be better off. I strongly encourage you to advance HB 1416 and take a different path than Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. King, for your testimony. You just testified that abortion pill reversal is a thing. Can you tell me more about that?
Could you clarify your question?
I'm just talking the end of your testimony. Maybe you could look at the last paragraph.
Yeah. What do you mean it's a thing?
Well, did you just mention abortion pill reversal?
Yes, as healthcare providers won't have to worry about losing their licenses simply because they offer safe and effective abortion pill reversal.
Abortion pill reversal. Tell me more about what abortion pill reversal is.
Why would you like to know? I'm not a doctor.
It was in your testimony.
This is just a safe, this is just a safe way that, people can save the life of a baby.
How?
Or are you asking me a medical question because I'm not a doctor?
This is your testimony. I'm asking you clarifying questions about your testimony.
It's fine. If
It's
you
yours.
can clarify what the pill does it reverse the effect of an abortion drug? What it does? That's her question.
Does the bill do that?
No. Does the pill?
Oh, does the pill? I mean, it's been proven to work to save life, but I don't
think she's familiar with the pill.
I don't want to comment more on it just because I'm not a medical doctor.
Okay. Do you have another line of track?
So
Ask, he tried to answer.
Okay, so we're going to put that aside since we don't have any information about that. And but your organization is a Massachusetts-based organization, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And your organization is a faith-based organization.
Yes, correct. Explicitly.
Exclusively.
Explicitly.
Explicit. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Explicitly. What faith is that?
Christian.
Just all Catholics too?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is you are looking for a religious organization from Massachusetts to give direction to how New Hampshire governs itself.
I'm here to testify in support of a bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in today. Final three, maybe. Jason Hennessy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee. My name is Jason Hennessy. I serve as the president for New Hampshire Right to Life, and I'm here on behalf of New Hampshire's pro-life community to speak in support of HB 1416. So why do we need protections? New Hampshire has 19 pregnancy centers that provide a wide range of services to expecting mothers, children, and fathers, including diapers, strollers, baby clothes, counseling, parenting classes, ultrasounds, even housing, which is a really big issue right now. And it's all at no charge. Just in New Hampshire, pregnancy centers help thousands of women a year and provide over $1.5 million of services. And that is just from a subset. So the real number is higher than that. And they do that without any state or federal tax dollars. These are truly charities that are representing the best of us. This legislation is needed to ensure that they can continue to operate. I've even seen pro-choice people supporting them because if you believe in choice, then you also believe in the choice for life. The reason for this legislation is because we've seen governmental attacks and physical attacks across the country in blue states like California, New Jersey, and including half of New England states. As a purple state, this could easily happen here. Several of the governmental attacks have been injuncted. However, these pregnancy centers tend to have small staff and budgets. Lawsuits and uncertainty are a significant distraction from their mission. Do you want them to spend their limited resources fighting court battles or helping pregnant women? Here in New Hampshire, in addition to the physical attack against the pregnancy center in Littleton, several prominent Democrat politicians have expressed a desire to go after pregnancy centers, including last election's Democrat governor candidate and the congresswoman from CD2. In addition to that, two Democrat state reps during the exec session in House Judiciary said they would like to go after pregnancy centers. One rep who testified here earlier today said he, quote, often thought there should be some sort of regulation, but I haven't really been sure of what or how. So I also want to address something that the senator brought up today that implied that that it hasn't happened here, and even though it's happening all around us in the blue states. And I want to mention that the last time New Hampshire was controlled by Democrats, at least for that legislature, was 2019 to 2020, or thereabouts. And when I looked at the list, I hadn't actually looked at it with this thought in mind, but if you look at the list of when these regulations really took off in blue states, it was really around 2021, 22, 23. And so if we had an election, as soon as the end of this year, I would be very much not surprised if we were to see pregnancy center limiting legislation or state agency rules. So why this legislation? So HB 1416 is very focused based on the attacks that we've seen in other states. It does not grant any blanket privileges to pregnancy centers, but simply says they can't be discriminated against for several common sense reasons that I would argue most people would agree with. In conclusion, I ask you, please, to quote the governor, please don't mass up New Hampshire. Let's protect the help available to pregnant women by passing this. I also, if the chairman is okay with it, I'd also like to respond to a couple things I've heard in previous questions.
Are you okay with that? Sure.
Okay, so one of the questions I've heard is, how is this different from shield laws? Well, I would like to bring up one of the cases that's going on right now in the courts, which is a doctor from New York who's protected under a shield law had sent abortion pills to a woman in Texas. The woman ends up in the emergency room, and Texas is going after this doctor for not having a license under Texas rules. But New York will not cooperate. They cannot assess fines. They can't do anything because of the shield laws. And so should we be protecting that kind of behavior in this country? I don't think so. I mean, we're not talking about, like, if you look down HB 1416, we're not talking about allowing people to operate on licensed medical things. We're talking about things like not forcing them to refer for abortion. I guess the other thing I'd like to respond to is there was a discussion about state agencies being partisan. I'll bring up that back in 2022, 2021, there's people in this room, I'm sure, who can remember. The state legislature in the budget passed a law that said basically no funding for abortion providers, and DHHS put that forward. The executive council said no, and then I think it went forward, I want to say 6 times, might have been 8, I don't remember exactly. But if that seems to me to be a particular bias from a state agency. And with that, I would love any questions.
Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you. So we were talking about what's happening in other states and as a justification for why we should take, in your view, I guess, precautions in this state, right? I'm on the right track with your testimony? Okay. So in Massachusetts, one of the states mentioned, there was a woman who went to a crisis pregnancy center and was misdiagnosed with an ectopic pregnancy that burst, and she almost died because she was misdiagnosed at a place that should not have been doing diagnostics, didn't know what they were doing. So were we to pass this bill, it would shield the crisis pregnancy centers from similar things that were they to misdiagnose, they're completely protected. Is that correct?
Senator, could you point out the line that would exempt them from liability?
So it would bind the next legislature from, because they would be medical centers, prohibit a medical pregnancy center from we would not be able to, I'm looking at Roman 8, line 23, page 2, that the state, any agency or subdivision thereof, or any municipality shall not, through the adoption or enactment of any law, ordinance, policy, or similar measure, prohibit a medical pregnancy resource center from providing medical testing or counseling, or care. So related to pregnancy or childbirth. So it would essentially carve out. So if we're going to look at what's happening in other states, we need to look at all the things that are happening in other states. Would you support an amendment that also shields abortion healthcare providers and the reproductive health care centers in this state?
So thank you for the question, Senator.
Yeah.
If I can just read the rest of that line where you stopped. So if I'm looking at line 23, it says,
Yes.
Prohibit a medical resource center from providing medical testing, etc. The key word is because the center does not perform, refer, or counsel in favor of abortion, chemical abortion, drugs, or contraception. That means that the state is welcome to regulate them in any other way that it regulates other medical providers, but it just can't discriminate because they do not perform, refer, or counsel in favor of abortion and the other thing. So I don't see any blanket exemption from liability in here, and there's certainly no exemption from civil liability.
So you're open to having some parameters put around the medical pregnancy resource centers delivering care for medical testing, counseling, and care related to pregnancy or childbirth, correct? So we're going to follow that all the way around the
Sure.
bush.
So
yeah.
right now they have to follow the laws of New Hampshire. And if there were other, and all this is saying is that they would not have to follow laws that target them specifically because, the keyword's because, they do not perform, refer, or counsel in favor of abortion, chemical abortion drugs, or contraception. So they have to follow all the rules of the hospitals if they apply to them, or other regulations that the state of New Hampshire may give. It's just, you can't, what it's saying is you can't regulate them because they don't do abortion.
So would you be open to an amendment that also shields abortion healthcare providers and reproductive healthcare centers so that everybody's covered?
So I thank you for the question, Senator. I testified before you. I know you hear a million bills, so you probably don't remember it. I testified.
Not a million, but a lot. It's a lot.
I
Look at that
testified.
binder.
Yeah, exactly. I testified when that bill was here about the Texas case as well as other cases. We're not providing, like, that bill basically shields people from criminal liability. For instance, like in New York, for practicing without a license. And, especially given that there are studies that show that the complication rate for chemical abortions is as high as 10 or 12%. I mean, I don't know why we should be exempting that from regulation.
No, my question is, this bill that we have right here, House Bill 1416, would you be open to an amendment that also includes abortion healthcare centers and reproductive healthcare centers in this bill?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I do not see a need for that, especially because at least the largest abortion provider in New Hampshire that I'm aware of has a multi-million-dollar lobbying budget. The pregnancy centers have, as far as I know, have no lobbying budget. They are very small operations. I'm here because I believe in the cause. I'm not paid.
Okay. I'm gonna hold off. Do you have any questions? No. Okay. So that's a
We're
no.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, round in the corner. Rachel Potter.
Multi-million-dollar. Good God.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rachel Potter, and I serve as Policy Associate at the ACLU of New Hampshire. I'm here today to oppose this bill simply because it's not needed, but also because similar legislation being introduced in other states, like similar legislation being introduced in other states, it elevates a particular viewpoint and ideology over a pregnant woman's right to accurate medical information and informed decision-making. I think others have spoken, and the senator has spoken to some of the privacy concerns, so I won't go into that. But I will say that we are concerned that this bill would grant very broad and far-reaching statutory protections to these pregnancy resource centers, organizations that are explicitly mission-driven, as we've heard today, to promote a specific anti-abortion viewpoint. Multiple people have said that they do not counsel or refer for abortions. And this bill will exempt them from the kinds of oversight and accountability that apply currently to hospitals, clinics, and other health-related providers. Several other speakers have suggested that this bill is necessary in order to make sure that these centers are not regulated because of their viewpoint, and that no organization should be elevated above another in statute. And yet, this bill creates a separate and more favorable set of rules for these anti-abortion centers by shielding them from transparency and accountability standards that other health and social service providers must follow. And this kind of preferential treatment raises serious concerns about fairness and neutrality. And as I said at the beginning of my testimony, let's be clear, this bill is not needed to protect free speech. Courts across the country have made clear that the government cannot restrict or compel speech based on viewpoint. But let's also be clear about this, that these rulings across the country do not authorize the state of New Hampshire to go further and grant special legal advantages to one organization sharing one viewpoint over another. And this bill does that. The state of New Hampshire can still regulate medical standards, misrepresentation, unsafe practices, but this bill binds the hands of future legislatures from ever regulating those specific entities. This is not protected speech. It is enshrining anti-abortion ideology into state law. This bill categorically prohibits even the most narrow factual disclosure requirements designed to prevent misleading omissions that lead to situations like the senator brought up previously in Massachusetts. No organization should receive exceptional legal status because of its ideology. Equal protection, consumer protection, and basic fairness require that all medical providers interacting with the public be held to consistent standards of truthful and transparent conduct. And allowing exemptions from these standards based solely on viewpoint sets a troubling precedent and risks undermining public patient safety. And so for those reasons, we are opposed to the bill and ask that you vote ITL.
Questions, Senators? Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Potter, for your testimony. So you testified that this bill would promote and provide a carve-out for a specific viewpoint. And I think we heard some testimony here today from a number of organizations that are affiliated with Heartbeat International. And so the carve-out that we would be providing in House Bill 1416 would carve out specifically, the viewpoints of these organizations, and the affiliated organizations of Heartbeat International. That would be a protection for their mission. There's no contradiction between justice and mercy. We can both minister to abortion-minded women and criminalize abortion as murder for everyone involved, including women. So that would seem to me that we would be protecting organizations that want to criminalize women seeking abortion health care. Is that correct?
I see this bill as not needed because the free speech of these organizations are already protected. And so this bill does go beyond that by, elevating these organizations because they have a specific viewpoint by shielding them, the word that you've used this hearing. So yes, in saying that this bill is necessary because because these organizations need protection because of their viewpoint, this bill is actually doing that in shielding an organization because of their viewpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Last but not least, I think it's Liz Canada. Does anyone else want to testify who we haven't talked about? Nope, it's you, Liz. You're always last. I feel the night is always coming on, and it's usually dark when you're here.
It's true. It usually is. I actually haven't been here in a while. Good to be
It's
back.
actually only 4 o'clock.
In a while.
What's that?
It's only 4 o'clock.
It's
We
only
could go for hours.
All right, I'll
So
vamp
let's go
for a
then.
while. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that. For the record, my name is Liz Canada. I'm the Advocacy Director at Planned Parenthood of Northern New England, Planned Parenthood New Hampshire Action Fund. Planned Parenthood has been mentioned a lot today, which is why I wrote down a bunch of notes. This bill doesn't have anything to do with Planned Parenthood specifically. It is, however, an abortion bill. It is very clearly about abortion. And that came up much earlier in the hearing. I heard someone say that if you tried to remove the word abortion from this bill, it just wouldn't work. And that's right. Like, the whole point of this bill is to send an anti-abortion message and put it into state law. I really appreciated hearing a previous individual mention preventative maintenance and wanting to do something proactively. Because for us with Planned Parenthood and with other folks who care about reproductive rights, we have been urging you all to protect things regarding abortion rights in New Hampshire state law. And there have been legitimate and clear attacks on reproductive health care providers, reproductive health centers, and abortion rights in our country. I jotted some down so I wouldn't forget them. Let me see if I can get them all. Because the other line that I heard earlier was that there haven't been attacks on these entities who are here today, not yet. But there's been a lot of attacks on organizations like Planned Parenthood, including the U.S. Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, removing the federal constitutional protection for abortion. The family planning program in New Hampshire, I heard someone mention the Executive Council and how they have voted down contracts that were awarded to Planned Parenthood of Northern New England, Lovering Health Center, Equality Health Center, multiple times since 2021. There has been no state funding to those organizations because they have been voted down because they are abortion providers. That has been very clear that that message has been sent over and over again. It is because they offer abortion. Title X is constantly under threat. We are not sure what is going to happen at the federal level in the next year. There is the Medicaid reimbursement that has been stopped for Planned Parenthood organizations across the country. Planned Parenthood of Northern New England continues to see patients who are covered by Medicaid, but not being reimbursed for that work. So that is something that is still happening in terms of the health care that is provided, and yet that attack is very much present right now. And that's not even getting into all of the legislative attacks that we are constantly fighting against. Abortion bans, abortion misinformation, attacks on reproductive health care providers. There were about 12 this year alone. And the entities who are here asking for preventative maintenance or saying that there aren't threats yet, there have been no legislative attacks or changes or proposals at all in New Hampshire ever. So it is very difficult to sit here knowing that there have been so many opportunities to add a proactive right to abortion in state law, that there have been opportunities to shield and protect abortion providers and patients in state law, that there have been opportunities to send the question to the voters about adding the right to abortion into the state constitution. Those things have all happened and they have all been voted down. So I'm happy to answer questions. I just want to be really clear that the attacks on reproductive health care providers is actually happening, and those are the folks who are providing health care day in and day out, no matter what.
Questions, Sanders? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Canada, for taking my question. So you'll take questions?
Oh, yeah, I'm
Okay.
happy to, yes.
Sorry, I'm thanking you, and I didn't ask.
Happy to do it, thank you.
So you mentioned legislative attacks on reproductive health care, a dozen this year alone. And we've heard on a number of occasions that New Hampshire is a purple state, so we got to be really worried about what's possibly coming. I've served for 10 years, and in that time, there has never been the trifecta that the Republicans have enjoyed, or actually quadfecta, if you will, since
I've heard words like that from Brad.
yeah. So the House and the Senate, the governor's office, and the executive council for this past biennium are all controlled by one party, and we have had a dozen legislative proposals for regulating or hampering access to reproductive health care and no state funding since 2021 for family planning programs. Is that correct?
For family planning program for health centers that provide abortion care. Family planning program is being funded for other community health centers, and we're very happy that they're getting that money. But the awards for the reproductive health centers have been declined intentionally because they offer abortion care.
Okay. In the past 10 years, there's been one biennium where there's been a majority a majority flip in the House and the Senate, but the Executive Council and Governor's Office remained in the other party. So have we had, and was there a tax? Did we have any legislation during that time that looked to hamper the free speech of crisis pregnancy centers?
Thank you for the question. You're testing my knowledge of the legislature makeup, but what I can tell you definitively is there have been no bills sponsored whatsoever related to crisis pregnancy centers. That has never happened. To regulate them, restrict them, change what they offer or say. Protected by the First Amendment, can already do the things that they are doing currently.
So may I follow up?
You may.
So would you say that if we are looking at two different kinds of pregnancy-related healthcare centers, that one has never had any regulations imposed upon it and has proliferated, there's 29 of them, and the other has been hampered by consistent legislative attacks and a cutoff of funding?
Thank you for the question. Reproductive health care providers have had many legislative attacks and restrictions and so forth. We've seen health centers close in New Hampshire and in other states as well. I heard mention of vandalism that has happened at reproductive health care providers as well. The Planned Parenthood Health Center at Claremont, which has since closed, that was vandalized as well. Vandalism shouldn't happen anywhere.
Sure.
The legislative attacks, the targeted attacks, that's happening to one group, and that's reproductive health care providers who offer the full range of information and options to all patients.
Last follow-up?
Sure, as long as
So
you keep it to the pregnancy resource centers.
So the reproductive healthcare center in Claremont closed. What is the reason why?
Thank you for the question. It was not so long ago, but a few years ago, and there's lots of reasons why health centers close. And I will just say the reality is it is very hard to deliver healthcare in rural areas of our country and in our state. We see that not just with reproductive healthcare providers, but with community health centers and so forth. Like, we are a rural state, and it is, we would ask that the legislature do everything you can to make sure that health centers stay open, that the folks who are providing health care are able to stay open. That is what we have continued to ask every time I'm here.
And so, since that's closed, there are pregnancy crisis centers that have opened in that area in Claremont and in Lebanon, and they would be covered under this bill, and they would not be required to provide any abortion health care information or referrals or protect patient privacy at all.
Thank you for that question. There's actually a really excellent report that I'm going to share with all of you later this evening that shows that if Planned Parenthood health centers close, there are no centers to take in those patients. Planned Parenthood sees patients for all sorts of health care. For many patients, it is the only healthcare provider they have. So I know that folks talk about abortion. Here we are talking about abortion here. That's one service that Planned Parenthood offers, but there are many others. And so if Planned Parenthood health centers close, there is very clear research that there are no community health centers to be able to, not enough community health centers to absorb the patients. And the folks who are being shielded in this bill don't always provide health care at all. So it's not the same in that way at all.
It's not the same.
But I will send you that research study because it's very good.
On the plus side, Liz, we're
Yes.
giving $500 million over the next 5 years. Might even be more than that,
Okay.
under the Big Beautiful Act.
Mhm.
And it's going to rural healthcare in New Hampshire. So shouldn't that help healthcare? in our rural areas?
Thank you
know
for the
we're off
question.
track.
I am so glad that there is money coming in for rural healthcare, and we can certainly use so much more in New Hampshire because still with the Medicaid cuts and changes, there are health centers at risk of closing. Even with that money coming in, we are in some scary times with what is going to still remain open in the next few years.
Thank you very much. I think we're all set, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to testify who I missed? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing.
Aye.